Yep, it flashed twice, but now it's recording.
All right, and we are live. That was quick.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon,
I'm Nathan.
and today we have another special episode. I don't know. Maybe we'll just keep doing special episodes forever. I think sometime we'll end up back on the TV stuff, but right now, I feel like we're having fun doing this.
The special episodes are fun. Talking about the movies is fun. Our other format show, which might come back at some point in the future, that was so broad ranging. I just like, okay, we're going to talk about the movie, and then at the end we'll dither off into weird political fantasies or news, but we'll only do that for 5 minutes.
Well, here I've been doing so much, like adding so much more research than is really necessary to talk about a movie.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun, but it's also more research because you'd think the other show where you have to watch 3 1-hour shows would be more intensive, but like no, they're not actually hour long, they're like 44 minutes, and it doesn't require any research.
Oh, there's nothing to research.
It's just your initial reaction to a first time viewing. But so this week we're watching the 1993 Last Action Hero.
Yes.
Directed by John McTiernan, my favorite movie director, and one of the few movie directors who's actually been in jail for spying on his employers.
Yeah. Great story. I respect him more now.
It's great to listen to his like old audio commentaries because he would talk about he would say something like, this important thing that's like cool about a John McTiernan movie is like how like the executives like never wanted to put that in the movie, and then he says like, yeah, you just got to figure out how to like pretend to give them what they want and then do what you want. And you're like, oh, you mean spy on them?
Yeah. And how do you achieve that? You use a crystal that you stare through it and hear their innermost secrets. Hey, some people are just so dedicated to the craft,
Yeah.
Some people believe in their vision so strongly. It's sad though that he got like cacked and lost everything over the rollerball reboot. It's like if it was like something epic, I would be like, well, man, that vision could have been great. If only not for having sloppy spy work. But no, it was the rollerball reboot,
which the thing
I
was
not have been that fascinated by.
And that was probably his dumbest movie he's ever made. It's even dumber than this movie. But this movie's supposed to be dumb. But anyways, we'll get into that. But yeah, I always thought the thing he did well is that it's like, okay, you're going to do a dumb action movie. It's like, okay, then almost no effort is put into it. Just let the stunt guys do all the work. And like, he actually brought like, sort of like a French kind of like cinematography to action films that other people didn't do, and the kind of care and work and like a lot of camera work that people wouldn't do. Like he almost got fired off of Predator because he liked to do like long flowing takes and where the camera doesn't stop. And like there used to be like a thing in sort of like Hollywood for editors where it's like you never cut on a moving shot, and it's like all his shots are moving. Where do I cut? And then he'd go into the editing bay and says, here's where you cut, and then they get mad at him.
Yeah. I don't have a purpose anymore.
But he made enough successful films where he could kind of do what he wanted, and then I'm guessing at some point there was pushback on doing that, and then probably started the spy. Yeah, I don't know when his spy ring started, so I can't tell you.
Yeah, he's certainly not going to confess after the fact. He's like, well, really, this started on ironic October, but
yeah, so yeah, it's like because like if I would be direct movies, that's how I want to direct movies. Like I don't want to do like special like like period dramas. Like I don't like that stuff. Like and serious movies, like I'm not good at that. I don't have an interesting life, but I like action movies, and I think I'd be good at making action movies, and I think I'd be good at making an action movie that's not standard, but also I've never been in a production, and then as soon as you get in one, you realize why every action movie kind of looks the same. It's because it's cheaper and easier, and it's easier to show an executive, and they're like, okay, that's a successful movie. It's like, wait, this is different, it's gonna hurt us. But
yeah, that's the thing with filmmaking. Like, you know, we talk about movies a lot, we watch them, and we even get some backstory, but still sometimes we're just baffled as a couple guys from corn country. It's like, how is this, like, why is this so difficult? And then, like, you get into an organization where there's 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 people, and you realize, like, oh yeah, this is all kinds of competing weird agendas and egos, and it's like, this is why this is hard. It's not just the art that's hard. It's the people you got to deal with to make the art.
It's like everybody wants to do it, and there's only so many spots, and there's a lot of money, and there's a lot of beautiful people there, so that's a lot of trouble too. So,
oh yeah.
This is written, so it gets a story by Zach Penn and Adam Leff, and so they wrote a whole screenplay, and then they purchased that, and then they shoved it off to Shane Black and David Arnott to finish it. So I guess they changed enough of it so that Shane Black and David Arnott got screenplay credit, and then these guys just got story by credit.
Okay.
And Shane Black is kind of a famous writer in Hollywood. He wrote like the Lethal Weapon, and he was also famous for working with John McTiernan on Predator, where he hired him as an actor. So he could use him to rewrite the screenplay on the go on Predator.
Nice. Okay.
And you know, he wrote like I forget. I think it's The Nice Guys. I can't remember. I believe it's Nice Guys. That's a good movie. And he wrote and directed Iron Man 3, which was good. And he wrote and directed the terrible The Predator movie that came out in like 2018.
Oh, okay.
That was a movie that was too Shane Black for itself. David Arnott seems like he has a weird history. He wrote like Ford Fairlane and this and nothing else. He seems to be like a crew guy, and after those two, like, was just like went back to doing crew work on movies.
Oh, okay.
So he's probably a friend. So, and of course, this stars Arnold Schwarzenegger and F. Murray Abraham.
Yep.
And Art Carney. Those are just the top billing names. But this is pretty much an Arnold movie, pretty much throughout. I think
Arnold Charles Dance.
Oh yeah. That was the diamond in the rough. He's great in this movie, and then he went on to become Tywin Lannister, or how do you say it? Yeah, how's Tywin Lannister?
Lannister, yeah.
On Game of Thrones.
Now, see, I always remember Charles Dance as the evil, like the actual demon guy from The Golden Child.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was like, you know, young Charles Dance, or at least younger.
Yeah.
Because Charles Dance is actually the most engaging character in the movie, in this movie in a lot of ways.
But yeah, I like that those guys get top billing, and like the kid doesn't get top billing here. I forget. I mean, the kid didn't really go on to do anything. He was just kind of one of those like, can we get Macaulay Culkin? No, get this kid.
Austin O'Brien. He's 41 now. Wow.
Yeah. I looked up some of his stuff. He had like a reoccurring role on, what is it?
Bones?
No, well, he might. No, he just had one shot there. But no,
oh,
he was on Touched by an Angel for like 3 seasons, and then his character's name's Josh Green, and then there's another series called Promised Land. He's also Josh Green, so I'm assuming that's like a spinoff of Touched by an Angel, and they did that for like 4 seasons too.
Oh, okay.
So it seemed like he had like a nice run on TV for there. So, but yeah, doesn't really seem to be doing anything right now. So, He's not dead, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean that's always good.
It's always things don't really go well for child actors. So,
No.
and of course, Ian McKellen shows up in the movie. So
Yeah, that was kind of weird. It's like, wait a minute, that's Ian McKellen. It's like, oh, okay.
and tons of famous henchmen and stunt guys.
Yeah.
You got like Professor Tanaka. He's like the butler, and what's the guy name?
Tom Noonan was in it.
Oh yeah, Tom Noonan. But
this is the axe guy.
Oh, Al Leong's in this. He's the guy who gets killed by the ice cream cone.
Oh, okay.
He was in like Big Trouble in Little China. He was in Die Hard. He was like the Asian guy on Hans Gruber's crew that steals the candy bar.
That's right. Okay.
And he's like in every action movie, especially in the 90s. But yeah, those guys are all around here. Yeah, it came out June 18th, 1993, so it was meant to be a summer movie. But this is also the summer of Jurassic Park, so I'm not sure if that hurt it, but it obviously didn't help it.
Well, I just remember from like this was the year I graduated high school is when this came out.
Yeah.
And I remember like you couldn't turn around and not see like promotion for this movie.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was like they must have spent just more on promotion than they did on the movie almost.
Well,
insane.
On Internet Movie Database, it listed the estimated budget at $85 million, and usually that doesn't include advertising. So,
okay,
it's.
I mean, they put it on the side of a rocket.
Like I said, it got this movie book, 182-page movie book that they sold in stores. It got a video game that looks not great, but playable.
Okay.
But yeah, my personal history of it is that I remember not liking it. I remember thinking I hated the kid and it was too stupid to like, and there was some like kind of fun action scenes, but otherwise I did not like this movie when I was a kid. And I was like 9 at the time, so
yeah, right, yeah.
I don't know how I came to that conclusion when I was 9.
Yeah, I saw this in the theaters because this was Schwarzenegger's right after like Terminator 2.
Yeah, yeah.
His next movie is like, well, this can't suck. It's like, it's not a fun movie to watch in the theater. I'll tell you that. I did watch the whole movie in the theater, but I was like, because this movie has like just weird slow times in it.
Yeah.
And it's not fun in the theater when you're like, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? This movie is called Last Action Hero. And there seems to be like, I don't know. There seems to be like a lot of silly stuff going on.
Yeah. And
when you're like 18 years old in the theater and you just like, oh, this has got to be as cool as, it's like, oh, no, it wasn't. It was kind of like, okay, that's over. I'll see you later.
But that's also like when you're that young, you don't like this. It took me to like later on to figure out like if you want like quality movie, you kind of have to like look at who directed it. Because that's more like, did they do good movies? That's more But I remember like when you're a kid, you kind of think that like you almost think like the star's so big that like they basically directed the movie and the movies they choose are like of quality, and then you realize like when you go later, like really actors have kind of like a really narrow window when they're kind of like can't miss, and it's like 4 or 3 years, and then their kind of career just fizzles away.
Well, and it was weird because like Schwarzenegger's career had moved from because there was just a lot of action movies, and then like he just started doing a lot of science fiction.
Yeah.
Which like seems to have a longer lifespan than just straight up action movies.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, he made kind of a career choice to do like darker sci-fi and stuff, just because of its staying power. I don't know if he planned it that way or it worked out that way. He's a really smart guy too, so he kind of knows, what he's doing. And but this was sort of a weird like, oh, this is going to be a play on all the action movies
Yeah.
of the 80s. And it's like, kind of, but it doesn't pay off.
And this is kind of seemed like this is a big flop for him, but he did rebound pretty quickly with True Lies. But after that, his career is kind of like it's all mediocre movies after that.
Well, he became a politician as much as an actor, and
I mean, he still had like Eraser and End of Days. He had a good like decade before he became a governor. So
yeah. But I think he was kind of like his heart wasn't in it after a while. Definitely like Terminator, Total Recall. Like you could tell, like, oh, he was invested in this.
Yeah, because all those movies like have like this long-reaching cultural relevance, which is like unprecedented for an action movie actor.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Maybe start with Act 1. We have a cop car pulls up in the camera. I watched this on a 4K Ultra HD.
Yeah.
Was there the weird thing where like it had like this weird like the picture like flopped into frame of the car pulling up?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Okay. I didn't know if that was something weird on. This like I'm not sure like because I don't have like the TV for 4K, but I was playing it and, like this movie like looks fantastic. All the practical stuff does. All the digital stuff does not look good at all. It stands out horribly. But
it's like, yep, that's a digital effect. Oh boy. They made Terminator 2 before this. Wow. Well, James Cameron made Terminator 2.
Yeah. But this is a mostly practical movie, but all the digital like compositing stuff stands out. But yeah, that'll happen.
I kind of forgot how old this movie was. Because in the opening scene, it's like, oh, they have the square headlight, LAPD police cars. Yeah. Like, they've 4 generations beyond that now.
Yeah, so there's a horde of cop cars at a hostage situation. Like so many, like, because you can see like, oh, this is basically kind of like mimicking like Die Hard, but there's like more cop cars here than what's in Die Hard. And then like then we come up to I mentioned I call him like the angry captain. He's actually a lieutenant here, but he plays an angry captain in a lot of movies. He goes, hell of a way to spend a Christmas. But I don't know if that's an in joke because I know Shane Black likes to set all his movies on Christmas for some reason.
Okay.
Because Lethal Weapon's during Christmas. He didn't write Die Hard, but that's during Christmas. Iron Man 3 is during Christmas. Nice Guys might be during Christmas. I'm not sure, but yeah,
probably is.
And the angry guy's Decker. He's played by Frank McRae, who plays an angry captain in 48 Hours, Loaded Weapon 1, and this movie. So he yells for a subordinate. They hear shots fired, and then a cop's just like dumped off the roof. This is my bane of my existence with English. You'll see how many times I actually say roof and not rough, which I don't think is a Midwestern thing. It's just a me thing.
Yeah, we all have. Speech is hard.
So Decker yells up through a megaphone, "Damn you, Ripper! Let the children go!" And then we have a low shot of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you just see his feet. His character's Jack Slater, and he's just walking across a sea of cop cars on the roofs, just like walking about like he's the Jesus of this movie, walking on cop cars.
Yeah. A ridiculous scene on purpose.
Yes. He's smoking a cigar, of course. I guess not. Then Decker yells at him not to do his like explosive heroics. And if he does, it'll be his badge. So then he just throws his badge back at the guy. He doesn't say anything yet. Just silently walking towards danger. Then the mayor turns up. It's Tina Turner. This is the only part she's in the movie. and then she's like cautioning Slater, and then introduces the lieutenant governor, and then Slater just slaps him on the nose and says, "When the governor calls, when the governor gets here, call me." Which I don't know if that has like any like meta connotation now that he became the governor of California like later on. Because one of the reasons like we watch this movie is like because all the like podcasts and like kind of Twitter sphere that I'm in or Reddit sphere or whatever that I'm accidentally in, people have said like the meta has turned on this movie, and so now it's good, just not necessarily because of intentionally, but because of just how things have developed. So
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's seen as a movie ahead of its time with its
yeah.
kind of genre bending, self-effacing. I mean, there's a point in the movie where it's like brilliant with Charles Dance, but that comes later.
Yeah. And then like a cop tries to keep him from going to the building. And he just like kicks the cop in the balls, and the cop just like flies in the air. Like a walkie-talkie just magically flies in Slater's hands, and then he like says to Decker like the next person to stop him is going to get hurt. Then he pulls out a Desert Eagle and racks a slide just to make sure you know he's got the most ridiculous big gun a person can have. So, and then Slater gets to the roof where Ripper, played by Tom Noonan, because like if you want a weird person that seems dangerous, you gotta get Tom Noonan.
Yeah.
And exceptionally weird makeup. It's like
really gross looking makeup and teeth fake teeth things.
Yeah, they shoot him down low. He has these weird fake teeth that makes it look like he has like 80 teeth in his mouth.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like those were like Tom Noonan's choices or if that's like what they did to him, but like it's interesting. And then he's got like this bright like yellow rain slick coat on, so he's very identifiable. It's like very good kind of like sight reading stuff. It's like, okay, this is the bad. Oh, and he has a ridiculous axe where it's just points and cleaves stuff all over it.
An axe that looks like it'd be as dangerous to the person using it as any opponent
he
would use it on. It's like, well, he's gonna kill himself with that axe. But yeah, it's
and
scary.
And he's holding a roof full of children hostage, but importantly he has Slater's son Andy up there, and that's he's like holding the axe to. And I guess he's just angry because Slater put him in jail, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And so Ripper wants him to throw his gun down, so he does, but Ripper doesn't believe that's his only gun, so then he throws down like 10 guns that he has all over his body. And he does have a belt on that has like a gun like on the belt, and I thought that was going to be a gun, but like no, it's not. It's just a picture of a gun. Also, yeah, like Arnold looks really good in this movie. He's 46 when he did this, so that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he was always a superhero.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's a bodybuilder, so it makes sense. Like, yeah, he's gonna look, when you have low body fat for that long, you're gonna look younger. As long as you don't look gaunt. Like that's the thing with like, if you have low body fat but build up your mass, you don't look gaunt like someone that loses weight like later on in life.
Yeah, I've seen those guys at work. It's like they go from 30 to 60. It's like, I lost 100 pounds. It's like, okay.
You somehow look younger and older at the same time.
Yeah, your head shrunk.
Then Slater pulls out a hand grenade, pulls a pin and tosses it at like his kids and Ripper's feet. But then Ripper like brings out the logic of this, like, oh yeah, this is a real grenade. You're just gonna throw it at your son, sure. And then so Ripper makes the kid pick up the grenade, but surprise, the grenade's actually a knife.
Grenade.
The kid uses it to stab Ripper. Then the Ripper throws his axe at Slater, and it like comes towards the camera like a 3D effect, but like this wasn't a 3D movie. It was just that's how they did it.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is like a famous shot from this movie. I figure that was like in every trailer or something.
Yeah, because the guy's dodging an axe by like an eighth of an inch.
Which is one of the better digital effects in the movie. So,
Yeah, I didn't notice that one. That one didn't glare at me. So.
I mean, you know, it's a digital effect, but it doesn't like stand out like it's almost cartoonish. It's like, okay, it almost belongs there. Also helps that the scene is at night, so that always helps special effects when you do things at night. So
yeah,
um,
that's why Blade Runner looks so cool. You never see the sun. This looks amazing. It's like, yeah, it's all shadows and light.
But then the film loses focus as Slater starts shooting Ripper. Then we cut back. We're in reality, and there's a kid that's watching a Jack Slater movie. The kid is Danny, played by Austin O'Brien. And then he starts like running through like this dilapidated theater to try to get somebody to focus the projector.
Yeah, it looks like he's in the theater, like from Escape from New York. Like,
yeah.
when you see the guys dancing in the basement or something, it's like, what the heck is this place?
I mean, I kind of like the idea of this magical theater where it's like, you know, it's like these people who love film, but like, you know, it's kind of on its bad luck. But it's like, Danny's literally the only customer. How's this place still in existence?
Yeah, this place wouldn't be showing reruns of action movies. I'm sorry to say. This be a theater more of the Pee Wee Herman variety to visit to keep its lights turned on. But this was still grimy New York. So
yeah. And so he wakes up Nick, the projectionist, played by Robert Prosky, which I didn't look up his work. Do you remember his
I've
other
seen
stuff?
him in all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
I can't remember what he's famous for.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm about to.
Okay. And then his name's Nick. He mentions that he can get Danny into like he says he has like he's getting like the reel in so he can show Danny the new Jack Slater movie before it premieres, and so that excites Danny. So he has something to hope for.
Oh yeah, he was in The Keep. He was one of the. That's his big thing. No, I'm kidding. That's just the movie I like. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. He was in Miss Doubtfire, Far and Away, Green Card, Gremlins 2, Loose Cannons. He's like a character actor.
Yeah. Well, he's like almost. Oh, who's that guy from?
And he was in Thief too. He was the
Oh,
the fixer for those two guys.
who's the guy in McHale's Navy?
Oh,
Do you remember?
no, I don't remember that guy.
Let's see. Ernest Borgnine. He's like Ernest Borgnine adjacent. That's who he kind of reminds me of. But
oh yeah, he's kind of in that vein of like if you can't. Yeah, either of those guys are kind of interchangeable throughout their career as like the guy who's like, I don't know, assists the main character in some important way or has some wisdom to impart.
Yeah. So Danny walks out of the theater and it's just like crime, homelessness, and like probably dirty street vendors with stolen goods or something.
Oh yeah, it's terrifying. Well, this is pre-Giuliani New York, I guess.
Yeah.
Before he cleaned up the town and became a Trump sycophant. Oh well, this isn't the podcast for
that. And then we cut to a teacher is trying to hype up Hamlet to the kids in New York. It's kind of funny. I learned this from the commentary. So she ends up talking about Laurence Olivier, and this was his wife.
Olivier's wife. I always think that's funny for a sidebar here for a second. Shakespeare in high school. I was never more interested in English class when we were doing Shakespeare, but they always make it seem like the kids hate it.
Yeah.
Everyone I knew in high school, not everyone was on fire about it, but they were all interested. Like they never had to like, oh God, it's this again. It's like, no, people like it.
I don't think I've read any Shakespeare in high school, but I can say like sometimes the prose can be a bit like what's going on here.
Oh well, yeah, we always see a movie. First we'd read it, then we'd see a movie, and then we'd read the dialogue out loud. That's what our teachers did.
Yeah.
And after you'd seen the movie and had some reference, then it's like, oh yeah, this is sort of cool. I mean, yeah, this is arcane English written in a very poetic style.
Yeah, but it's poetic. That's the important part. Because you ever try to read the Bible, it's just nonsense. That's
Yeah.
at least Shakespeare. If it's nonsense, it's poetically nonsense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
It's
I've
like,
always,
I don't know what that means, but it sounds really cool.
I always laugh and like because I was like terrible in high school most of the time. I mean, there were some things I did good at, but generally I was like not good. But yeah, when you start talking about Shakespeare or Orwell or all like the big books, Beowulf, yeah, I was all in. Like, oh yeah, go ahead, and then I would actually like do my assignments and write papers, and the teacher would be like, "What? I didn't know you could read and write." It's like, well, yeah, if you give me something interesting, yeah, I just. If we're just conjugating verbs all day, it's like, yeah, you can check me to right the hell out. But yeah, I always thought that was funny to my mind. Like, oh no, it's Shakespeare. It's like I remember everyone generally liked that.
I don't think we ever read Shakespeare. We read like A Tale of Two Cities, which I remember being just kind of boring. It's like, why aren't we reading Shakespeare?
Yeah, Dickens is fine, but it's like Shakespeare's cool because there's always relatable things going on in Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, it's all. But see, that was all. I was really sucked into Tolkien at that time. So it's like Beowulf. It's like, oh, we're going to study Beowulf. It's like, yeah, so did Tolkien. That's where all this came from. Cool, I'm in. I'm like, I'm going to get A's. Like, oh, we're having a big final on Beowulf. Well, put me down for an A+. I'm going to know it all. But then we're going to do completing sentences. Oh, well, that's enough. Anyway, yeah. So the kids are hating Shakespeare, which is.
Do you know all your prepositions?
Yeah. Oh, F.
Daniel walks in late, but the teacher doesn't seem to care. But I imagine like probably a teacher in New York, that's probably the right reaction. It's like, well, they either show up or they don't.
Yeah, I don't know where he was living. I mean, I
think he's in Queens.
Okay, yeah, because it was like either there or somewhere near Alphabet City or something. It's like, oh yeah, these kids are, if they're even coming to school one day a week, they're getting a gold star because those were bad places.
But also, like, I just don't know like New York that well, so I never. It's like, you always hear like basically when you say one place, like, oh, is that the bad part of New York? It's like, well, everyone says Harlem is, but that's because that's the white people saying that.
Yeah, it's.
I hear like the east side and the west side have like been like gentrified and now it's all full of rich people. Then you hear stuff about Queens, and then there's like Long Island, which is just its own thing. It's not, it's like it's a bridge away. It's not even like I mean, it's attached to New York City. It's part of New York City, but it's like a separated part of it. So
it's a very Republican right wing part.
Also, Long Island is huge and doesn't really have all the big, like commercial buildings like New York City does.
No, there's a lot of
the Manhattan area does.
Yeah.
And then there's Staten Island, which is also a thing unto itself. So New York's a very microcosmic culture thing.
See, my only living impressions of New York are when we lived out on the periphery of it. Yeah. And that was in the 80s. And like, we've been there. And I was like, oh, Escape from New York's totally plausible. And I have that fixed in my mind to this day. Because as a child, when we lived around there, it was like, that's what New York was in the 80s. It was scary and strange. Yeah. And like the garbage people were always on strike. Someone was always on strike. And it's like, oh, don't go on Tuesdays and Thursdays because the tunnel ticket collectors are on strike. You never get out. And it was like, oh, this is a crazy place. Maybe it's wonderful. No, I don't know. Never go there. So I have no reason to. Yeah. So just like I've never been to the West Coast and never will. I have no reason to. I mean, if there's a reason to, I'll go, but not right now when it's 120 in Sacramento.
Nathan, you gotta get in and out just so you can be disappointed by it.
Yeah.
Everyone says this is great, and then you try it, and it's like, oh man, this is perfectly fine.
This is totally acceptable. You know what? I'll tell you, people on the coasts, and I've heard this. People from the Midwest don't need to go anywhere to the coast to eat unless it's fine dining.
Yeah.
Anything like, oh, you got to try this fast food. It's like, oh no, we got the best fast food. It's all made here. It's literally farm to table in some cases. It's like, oh, you got to try this shake. It's like, no, dude, we got Culver's. I mean, and also 15 like family clone businesses similar to it that are even better.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I always like it when you say, oh, you got to try this fast food from the West Coast. No, I don't. I absolutely don't. Never been to Chicago? Okay, there we go.
Oh, yeah,
That's my
Chicago's-
big city that I don't go to either. I got Detroit. I mean, I live like
yeah.
I could get to Detroit in 25 minutes, but I'm not really into sports, so
Nowadays, it seems like Chicago, or at least inner city Chicago, is more scarier than Detroit nowadays.
yeah, because Detroit's all burned down. There's nothing left to kill. I mean, it's all dead.
um,
Or it's weird, like funky art houses.
well, there's going to be an IndyCar race there next year. They're building, they're taking it off of Belle Isle and they're putting it downtown next year.
Nice. That's gonna be cool. The downtown area is nice. It's no bullshit. It's a nice, like, don't look too far into the distance, but it's like the downtown area by the GM World Headquarters is actually kind of cool, and all the sporting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when you get they get that famous shot of just the big giant fist downtown.
Yeah.
It looks like it's like, are we in New York? It's like, nope, this is Detroit.
Yeah. Well, they want to put the RoboCop statue down there too, and the city keeps fighting. It's like, no, that had a lot of negative connotations. It's like, yeah, and you lived up to almost all of them. The only thing we didn't have here was fighting robots, and it ain't over yet. So don't count it out. So anyway, yeah, back to New York.
Yeah, Danny sits out of the class. They're gonna watch Hamlet with Laurence Olivier, and then Danny imagines Hamlet with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Which is cool.
So I think when we were talking about Quick and the Dead, we ended up like coming across, because I think the DP shot the Romeo and Juliet that came out in the 90s.
Oh, the Laz Berman one or whatever.
Or is it Baz Luhrmann? Or is it
Baz Luhrmann, something like that.
Yeah,
Laz
the Baz
Berman. Did I say it backwards? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Good for me.
I was forgetting, so I was like, wait, did I do it wrong?
No, I'm getting old now. I'm starting to make senior mistakes.
Yeah, that was Baz Luhrmann's movie, and then we ended up talking. I was like, was there a Mel Gibson movie where he was Macbeth and he had like a Mac 10? So I think there was a Mel Gibson Macbeth movie, and then I conflated it with this scene.
Yeah.
And now I just want to see a whole movie of Hamlet as an action movie. I want to see Zack Snyder's Hamlet.
Yes.
And it's just all this.
Yeah, like the Stygian witches are like just beautiful models. It's like set. It's like got a painted background. Like, he could do that. I like Zack Snyder. I mean, that Justice League Zack Snyder was like, oh, this is great. I mean, 4 hours is a little in depth, but I'm building tiger tracks, so okay.
I mean, like everything he does visually is incredibly well done, but much like, who's like the Bad Boys director and Transformers guy,
Michael Bay.
Yeah, much like Michael Bay. Michael Bay makes amazing looking movies. He just chooses to make bad movies, like stupid movies, but they're always visually interesting. Because I never saw Sucker Punch, but I saw the trailer. I was like, this looks awesome. And then when the reviews came out, it's like, I guess I'll just keep watching the trailer and never watch that movie because I heard it's bad.
No, I'll watch it. Just turn the audio track, the vocal track off. Just sound effects. Just watch the movie, and it's like, this is cool. Doesn't matter what's going on. It looks cool.
So yeah, this Hamlet is in black and white, and it's got like color accents, which is like new for the time. I mean, like I think Schindler's List came out the same year, so they had stuff like that, so it was better done there. But here it's still impressive.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's basically just a spoof of Hamlet. He's got a machine gun. He's like making fun of famous life. He's like, to be or not to be, and he's just like, it's like, how about not? And they just like blow somebody up. And he blows up the castle.
Yeah.
And then we cut away, and it's just a dream in Danny's head. It's like how he thinks Hamlet should be to excite him rather than boring old stuffy. Again, like the teacher like plays it up. It's like Hamlet's the original action hero. It's like there's sword fighting, drinking, sex, and everybody dies at the end.
Yep. It's the best action movie you've ever seen. Not much room for a sequel, but
Hollywood will make Hamlet 2 if Hamlet makes a bunch of money.
Hamlet 2: The Return.
I always thought like have you ever heard of oh no, I'm just forgetting it. It's a John Woo movie.
Shakespeare adjacent.
No, it's John Woo. So sort
John
of.
Oh yeah, kind of, yeah.
A Better Tomorrow, and you maybe seen this. I don't know. It was more of a Hong Kong movie when it came out, and it's been dubbed over here a couple times, but it was one of his first big action movies. It was like the first movie to do like the guns akimbo thing with like specifically like two Berettas and like, you know, like falling down a hallway and shooting two guns at the same time.
Okay.
It was one of the first movies to do that. And then he did a sequel, A Better Tomorrow 2, and like everybody dies in the first movie, and they just literally give him a twin who runs a Chinese restaurant, and then he's like, but I'm even better than my brother. And then it's just a bigger, more balls out action movie than A Better Tomorrow.
I think didn't we watch that on one of our other show?
I don't think so. The first one or the second one?
The first one, because I remember there was a movie we watched. It was really cool. It was very long. It had a lot of good action in it, and everyone died at the end. And I know it was like a Hong Kong movie. We might have seen it, but I
maybe
there's a couple Hong Kong movies like that.
Yeah, well, he did like A Better Tomorrow. John Woo did so many action movies that are all kind of cool, but like his big ones are The Killer and Hard Boiled, and kind of like in between those is like A Better Tomorrow is one of his first movies because it's actually like not a full on action movie. It's a bit more reserved and less budget, and then they increase, and The Better Tomorrow 2 is kind of like on the other end of that.
Okay.
So they're not like his like most recognized. The Better Tomorrow movies aren't his most recognized, but they're still like cool John Woo movies.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we'll have to give a look because I remember they had like weird rights issues. Because the only way I saw Better Tomorrow 2 is I found it in a Sam Goody for like $25 on VHS, and it's the only time I've ever seen it.
I love those weird rights issues.
But that might be cleared up nowadays, but who knows?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Then we dissolved to Danny watching Looney Tunes because that's just like the thing you do. Usually it's to show like a serial killer before they killed somebody and to show that they're serial killers. Danny's mom covers for him skipping school. And they argue about him watching too many movies instead of paying attention in school. And this is where he learned that his dad's dead, and you know life is hard for them because they live in New York and on a single income. And then she leaves to go to work, and the front door is just loaded with locks.
Yeah,
it's got like
it's like a stop bar.
Yeah. And then so Danny's doing his schoolwork, but he gets bored, and so he decides he's gonna leave and go to the movie theater. And this was like just some guy breaks in and threatens him with a knife. Like this is out of nowhere, but this is like great for the movie because it shows like how dangerous reality is.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is also where it shows him like the guy like gives Danny a chance to like fight back. Like he puts a knife on the ground and turns his back to him, and like, you know, this is kind of like illustrating like reality. Like in an action movie, he would have killed the guy, but in reality, no. He's a kid and he's overcome by fear. And then
I forget his mom is Mercedes Raoul, who played all kinds of stuff. And she was in The Fisher King. She was in Married to the Mob. She was in Big.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, wow. She was in The Warriors even a long time ago. I'm smart. Yeah.
She one of the Lizzies.
She was credited as policewoman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The burglar like cuffs him like to a pipe, and then he gets mad when like everything in their house is like they have nothing good to steal.
Yeah, I like the robber. Like, have a bunch of crap or something like that.
And then he throws like the cuff key in the toilet for Dane to like fish out as like punishment. But I'm like, those cuffs are worth like $30.
Yeah, I was gonna say handcuffs aren't cheap.
But it's a good setup for something later on.
For the movies, it takes you 10 minutes to saw through them with a hacksaw, and which would take like 4 or something.
Yeah.
That's a Road Warrior or Mad Max thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then later on, Saw.
So, yeah, it's like, yeah, Saw. I've watched a couple of those. I found those a little off-putting. It's like, oh, this is just.
So we cut to Danny's giving his statement to the police. And then we cut to him like running to Nick's theater trying to get in. Nick lets him in. He says he has something special in store. He's wearing like an usher uniform with like the little kind of like fez cap on. He says something about like the theater used to be like a vaudevillian theater, and then it switched to. So it's much more. It's not like a purpose built movie theater. It was more like a play theater, and then became a movie theater later on. Because movie theaters don't exactly look like that. Like that's like an older one because they have like the slanted walkway rather than sort of like it's always flat and then it's just built stairs for your theater seating.
Yeah.
But like those were always like it was just a big slant down because we had a theater like that in Wabash.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then he tells them a story of the golden ticket given to him by Houdini. And then he rips the ticket and gives him the ticket stub to Danny. And then Danny goes and gets a screening of the new Jack Slater 4 movie. So I have that being the end of Act 1 because like, okay, here's a ticket. Go enjoy your movie. And so we have Act 2. We get into Jack Slater 4. Because the previous one we had like the Ripper scene, that was Jack Slater 3.
Oh, okay.
So that was the previous movie. Some mob guy has Slater's cousin tied up, which they always make the point that it's Frank, his second favorite cousin.
Second, yeah. His favorite second cousin.
Oh yeah, favorite second cousin. Yeah. Yeah, which is like, a fun thing for like, action movie franchises have to keep coming up with like family members to kill or put in danger to put the hero in action. So it's just like, well, I've already killed his entire family. We just need to add more. Like he has a second cousin. Then also we're introduced to Benedict, who's played by Charles Dance. He has this giant pistol revolver. It's a Dan Wesson 357 target revolver.
Yeah.
Custom.
Like oversized targeting thing on it.
Yeah, it's got like I think it's a leaf spring sight or whatever. It's like you can like raise it up to like if you want to shoot out to 1,000 meters, which nobody ever does. Or you can have and it's got like the big custom grip on it and stuff like that. So yeah, it's ridiculous. John McTiernan was really happy with that gun because he was like, "What's the most ridiculous gun I can get for this guy?" And that was the one he picked out. So. Yeah,
and it makes sense. It's like, yeah, it works.
Also, like the guy's supposed to be like they show him like not looking at a target and hit the bullseye of the target, not looking. So it's like, oh, this guy's like he's basically like a sniper. But so it's like, okay, what's the most accurate, ridiculous revolver that exists at the moment? It's like, here you go. And he has a glass eye that's a target, or it's a crosshair at this time. So,
yeah.
And then so he's like beating up his second cousin, and like the mob guy tells him to like take care of it. And so we cut to another scene where the cops saying they got called to a crack house, and then Slater shows up, but he's there to deliver groceries to his second cousin Frank. And the cops are about ready to bust in the door. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, there's no drugs in there except for aspirin. And so once he gets to the door, then he feels like suspicious about what's going on. So he opens the door, he sees Frank tied up, and then Frank like says that like all the mob are like joining together, and then he just dies like all of a sudden. And then he sees a note pinned to his chest, and it's like a bunch of cards, and as he flips them over, it says like 5, 4, and then he realizes there's a bomb, which is a clever, which is like a clever nonsensical thing. It's like, okay, yeah, this is the over the top action movie. It's fine to do this nonsense. And then it is just a completely ridiculous explosion. You know, it's like the gas station RoboCop explosion level of ridiculousness. um, and like yeah, the you know, he's kind of thrown to the ground and charred up, but the cops that were there with him are like launched in the air and shoved in the trees, and they die. And you have Danny. You cut to Danny kind of talking about like he's fine. The two cops are dead, and they cut to one of the cops who's like charred up and hanging from the tree, and he's like, I was 2 days from retirement, and then just dies.
Yeah.
But comically so.
Right.
And then a gang show up, and what is that, like a Model A truck, or what kind of truck is that?
I don't know. I thought that was like a 50 something Chevy.
Okay.
But it was heavily modified. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so they just pop up. They start firing guns and throwing dynamite during a car chase. Like there's a bucket, like there's a little ring on the side holding the flare. There's a bucket of dynamite, and they just take a stick out and hold it to the flare to light it, and then just like are tossing the dynamite, which is super stupid but really fun. So
yeah, I mean it makes sense in one way because it's like, well, you're always ready to light it, but also it's like, well, you better hope that flare doesn't.
Yeah. So they throw like a whole like kind of like wrap thing of dynamite, just a bundle of dynamite, and then Slater shoots the dynamite out of the air, and then this is where it bursts through the projector screen and lands inside of the movie theater. And then Danny's like trying to like ignore it. It's like that's not real, and he like throws his bucket of popcorn on it, and then starts running away. It explodes, and the screen fades to white. And then Danny wakes up in the action movie in the back of Slater's car.
Oh, okay.
So that's how we get to, that's how we put Danny in the movie. Oh, I was forgot, like, the whole time, like, the golden ticket, it's kind of, like, glowing and stuff and trying to impart, like, some sort of power has been activated. And so Danny doesn't like reality, so now he gets to live in his favorite escapism of action movies. Yeah, there's more shootout and chasing. Like he ends up like blowing up a guy, and the guy like flies into an ice cream truck. The ice cream truck blows up, and then that kills one of the guys on the truck as he just falls over, and there's an ice cream cone in the back of his head, which again is funny but would never happen.
Yeah.
An ice cream cone is not dense enough to be shoved into you. I mean, that I know of. I don't know.
I mean, somebody will try it on YouTube, maybe.
Yeah. Has there been a Mythbusters of can an ice cream cone kill you?
Not yet, but there will.
I don't know, it doesn't exist anymore, so.
Oh, yeah.
But there's other stuff out there. There's like Smarter Every Day does stuff like that, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and a bundle of dynamite lands in Slater's car, and then he's just like doing car stunts to like roll the dynamite towards his hand so that he can throw it. Well, actually, he doesn't throw it. He just like snaps his fingers at the fuse to like put it out.
Oh, okay.
And then they kind of get away for a while, and then Slater pops in some music into his mini disc player.
I love that. Yep. I have
now forgotten tech. Pretty much everybody just had a CD player, so they didn't need a mini disc player. But the mini disc did live on as like especially in Hollywood, as a portable recording device for audio.
Oh, okay.
It became popular for that. Like I almost bought one because when you're doing stuff for like consumer grade like video production stuff, like the thing that always like makes your stuff look bad is the onboard audio on the camera, because if there's any silence, all the microphone picks up is like the tape being wound inside of the whir of the tape being wound inside of the camera.
Oh, okay.
So you'd have to like offboard the audio, and they had like this little pack, and you could put mini discs in it, but it was kind of expensive, and obscure as were the mini discs, were like $11 a pop or something like that. And I think I only recorded like 2 hours of audio, but it was really high quality audio.
Yeah.
So I almost got that, but I did not. I was also looking at DAT players at the time, digital audio tape. Now they probably just have a hard drive they record to, but
yeah. Yeah, I had a mini disc from like the mid '90s until like the first iPod, I think. But I had like a bunch of just a bunch of songs on them. So
yeah, could have fit a whole album on the mini disc.
oh yeah.
Okay.
Because I just had the Sony one that was like the player recorder. It was a little square box, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't the oversized one either. It wasn't much bigger. The last one I had wasn't much bigger than the disc you put in it. But yeah, then it's like, okay, this is all silly. You know, it's like the iPod completely replaces this. The first iPods were big too. Like they weren't little.
But I figured, like, what was the advantage of the mini disc? Was it just like less likely to skip, or did it have better audio quality or something?
Yeah, both those things. Okay. And I think you could track around on it really fast.
Oh, okay.
Like if you wanted to go like, oh, play track 7, you were just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It just immediately, like, it didn't have any of that. If you moved it, I remember mine. If you pressed it fast enough, it just went right to track 7. It didn't like do the stop. You know.
But it's also the days of like format wars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because like Sony made the Betamax, but then the VHS kind of like won over. And I think it was JVC that created the VHS. And so like JVC basically got like, I don't know, like a penny or a nickel for every time somebody like printed a VHS tape or something like that. And it's like, oh man, it's like free money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Sony like kept doing a lot of different format stuff. So I think this was a Sony format, but also there was the wars later on with like DVD, because I think Sony made the CD. Oh no, I forget who made the CD. Now I'm forgetting. I think it's like that and the DVD are both things that like Sony missed out on, but Sony did create the Blu-ray. So
okay.
Which the Blu-ray is probably like kind of like the last kind of format, because now just everything's digital, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, I remember some guys were joking once about it was something having to do with like Jeffrey Epstein when he started, and they were using like jazz drives, and it's like, well, that's why none of these guys are getting prosecuted, because they can't find out how to get anything off those jazz drives. It's like, yeah, this media changes like saved all these people from prison because they can't get the information off of them.
Even like thumb drives aren't really a thing anymore. I mean, they still are, but like nobody uses it because like you just have the cloud.
Yeah, it's kind of negated. I remember like one of my Macs, I had the what's it called, the Time Machine.
Yeah,
it's just a giant external hard drive that if you like your computer screwed up, you could go back in time to an earlier system. And I paid like $500 for it. It was good for like 3 years. And then it started getting kind of wonky and it wouldn't recover. And the Time Machine, they kind of quit supporting it. And then came the cloud, and it's like, oh, okay. Now my actual computer is smaller than the time, what's it called? The time capsule, or so whatever. It's like, yeah, the whole computer I'm on right now is smaller than that giant thing was. And that thing, like, it was just a hard drive. It just like when you could tell when you were saving, it was like, whir, and now everything's just silent.
Yeah. But not to be outdone by a mini disc, we then have a van that pops up with a minigun.
Yes.
And then he jumps his Oldsmobile off into the LA River aqueducts, and so we have a chase through the LA River aqueducts,
which you have to have.
Yeah. He ends up back on the road, and then he ends up in an alleyway, and he plays chicken with the truck thugs. The thugs flinch and crash into a modeling session or something. So it's a bunch of women in lingerie.
Yeah. And the truck like bursts into flames, and the guy does the classic stuntman on fire.
Yeah.
Jumping into a fountain thing.
But he's like calmly walking over to douse himself in the fountain. And then Slater like lights a cigar with a lit like stick of dynamite, and then tosses the dynamite into a dumpster that has like a bad guy sticking out of it. So,
Yeah.
and it blows
Would
up.
totally ruin the flavor of the cigar, by the way. Suck in all the fumes of the what's that, nitrocellulose or whatever burns off in a fuse. It would be terrible.
How are you supposed to smoke a cigar? You don't inhale it, but you just like hold it in your mouth and smoke it.
Oh yeah, you just roll it around. I got a couple Cubans here. A guy gave me. You just clip off the end that you're going through, and you just, because it's the only smoking I do, and I don't do much of that anymore either. But yeah, you roll it around. It's kind of the wetness on the cigar activates something in the tobacco, and then you roll the smoke around your mouth, and yeah, your teeth will start to go numb and stuff. If you get good ones, they're really good, but it's also like something that's just hard. It's like, okay, I'm dedicating the next 30 minutes of my life to standing outside and smoking. Because of course, you're not doing it in the house. So, yeah.
I just never understood it, but I never understood smoking in the first place. So.
Oh, I understood it.
Then we cut to the Los Angeles Police Department. There's a valet. As they walk in, we have Sharon Stone there as her character from Basic Instinct, which is, again, one of these things from the weird things from the 90s. Like, here's a character from an R-rated movie that we know kids are going to know somehow.
Oh, yeah.
Also, the T-1000 is there. This is an ultra lavish police station.
Yeah, it's got like a fountain in front that he drives around like a circle drive, you know.
Like, all the cops are like hot. They have like women in like weird, almost futuristic like fashion lingerie, and they're cops. It's like, are you working undercover, or is that just your cop uniform? And also Danny here, he compares it to the police station he was just in. It's like, oh, this is way nicer.
Yeah.
There's also just a desk in the background where like just odd couple cops are being paired together.
Yeah, it's like Humphrey Bogart. And,
yeah.
And some lady cop, and then there's a cartoon cat.
Yeah.
Who's also like a pervert. Yeah. That's Danny DeVito's voice, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like completely ridiculous.
Because it's supposed to be like, this isn't supposed to be like the movie that Danny's supposed to watch. This is just supposed to be like, when the camera's not looking at the characters, this is like the internal logic that's going on inside this universe or whatever.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
I mean,
it's like, of course it makes sense to Jack Slater.
Because the weird thing about this movie is it's almost trying to be Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but with just like none of the IP.
Yeah,
it's all internal IP. Although they did get Humphrey Bogart. So. Actually, they do get a lot of weird things that it's like, oh, that's public domain. That's why this is in this movie that costs way too much. Then we have John Practice, a federal agent, shows up, played by F. Murray Abrams. Kind of interesting thing, like in the commentary, John McTiernan talks about how like they are both like theater carpenters in New York.
Oh, okay.
Like earlier in their careers. So that's how he knows him. So yeah, we'll just show up and do a spot as a Fed. So yeah, like Practice tells him something's going on with the mob, and also here is like Slater apparently saved Practice's life in Nam, apparently. So this Austrian guy moved to America, joined the army, and then
that's the one thing they never questioned in the movie. I was waiting for that to come up. It's like, yeah, you're this American cop with this like thick accent, obviously like German type, this German accent, which is a trademark of Schwarzenegger. Right, but it's like that never came up. I thought that would, because that would be the ultimate like, yeah, I'm just a rough and tough American who immigrated to this country 10 years ago.
I just thought where it's like, because that there's a similar thing with Van Damme too, where it's like, I'm an American. It's like, yeah, what's with this French accent though? It's like, oh, I was in New Orleans.
What part of America exactly?
Yeah, I think multiple movies they just said he was from New Orleans to get around his thick, or I guess was he from?
He's from Belgium, right?
Belgium, yeah.
Yeah.
The muscles from Brussels. And we hear Lieutenant Decker screaming. He screams so loud that his front door breaks. The glass in the front door breaks. And he's chewing out Slater. This is where Danny points out the animated cat, and it's being like completely unrealistic, but it doesn't phase anyone. It's like, so what? He'll be here next day. It's like, and yeah, and pretty much from this point on, Danny's like kind of trying to point out like all the logic of action movies, where he says like, no, this is going to happen because it's an action movie, or he's like, or also he's trying to prove to Slater that this isn't reality. It's an action movie. But then Danny gets interrogated by Slater and Decker when they realize they don't know who he is, and they call around and like nobody knows who he is. Like, you don't exist. But then Slater gets paired up with Danny as partners. And then Danny says, yeah, we'll make a great buddy cop movie. And he's like, yeah, I'll teach you to be vulnerable. And then
right. Yeah.
And then Slater just hates Danny because of this. And then Danny dares Slater to shoot him because good guys don't kill kids in movies. And so Danny takes Slater to a Blockbuster, another outdated thing. But it's like a Hollywood version of Blockbuster where just exclusively it's the employees are models.
Yeah, yeah.
Also in this universe, Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't exist, and so there's a movie poster stand that has Sylvester Stallone as starring in Terminator 2, which is fun.
Which would be really weird.
Yeah. Let's have a robot with speech impediments.
Yeah.
It can work. Yeah, it's better for him to hide. Like, how could he be a robot? Have his face paralyzed. It's also where Slater compliments Stallone as being a good actor, because it's always played up as them being kind of like in competition with each other. So, this is fun. Because I'm sure those guys are probably going after the same roles constantly. So,
yeah.
But I'm betting Schwarzenegger probably turned down way more movies than Stallone did. So. Yeah, this is where Danny points out, like, every woman is attractive. Like, it's like, where are the everyday women? They don't exist because this is a movie. And then Slater responds, no, this is California. So it's like, they're both right.
Yeah.
It's a commentary that still exists to this day.
Wasn't it like, because of all the stuff they shoot in Canada? Like Vancouver is like the most beautiful city in the world because it's a bunch of people trying to be in mainly TV shows and stuff.
Yeah, TV shows, but they shoot a lot of sci-fi TV shows up there, which usually have more diverse casts. And so there's just like a unique mix of people in Vancouver, of the most beautiful people from all over the world exist in like Vancouver.
Yeah. They're all there for acting roles.
Yeah. So Danny's taken to Vivaldi's house. That he's the gangster. This is also where Danny explains the magic ticket to Slater. And they go to the door. They knock on Vivaldi's house, and then Slater's just kind of like playing with this, and he's like, "May I speak to the drug dealer of the house?" And he's just being intentionally like weird about it. We have the big doorman played by Professor Tanaka, who. He's kind of a big henchman in a bunch of movies, stunt guy. Maybe most memorable as he played Sub-Zero in Running Man.
Yeah.
That was one of his big ones. So that guy, he just laughs and closes the door, and Slater walks away, and Slater says, "I'll be back." And then he stops and says, saying like, "Hey, you didn't know I was going to say that." And then Danny's like, That's what you always say. It's like your trademark. People are waiting for you to say it in every movie, and he's like, "Damn it." So yeah, they go back to the door, and this time Benedict answers the door. And then he wants to see if he has a glass eye, but he doesn't have the crosshair. This time he has a happy face in his eye. So then that's kind of like, oh, it must be a different guy then. But as they're walking away, like Benedict overhears Danny explaining basically like the opening scene of this internal movie, and he's like, how would he know that? So he seems to be kind of like onto something. It's like, this is weird. Like, who's this kid? It's kind of weird. Like he keeps referring to the kid as Toto, like, you know, he's, you know, Dorothy lost in the Wizard of Oz. And in the commentary, John McTiernan compares this movie to Cinderella. So
okay,
which I'm guessing is kind of be about like somebody who comes from low means and all of a sudden they're kind of like have a wish granted and they're thrust into a magical world that they shouldn't be in. So I'm guessing that's the Cinderella crossover.
Yeah, that's what I'd think.
But yeah, I think it would be more like, actually, I probably think it'd be more Alice in Wonderland. That would probably be a more apt comparison.
Right.
It's a cartoon, you know, whatever way, it's a cartoon. Slater and Danny goes to his ex-wife's house. Danny says she isn't home because her name wasn't in the credits, which is fun. Danny knocks on the door, and then we have Whitney, played by Bridget Wilson Sampras. I think it's like maybe Sampras, I'm not sure. Or she's probably most famous. She was in Billy Madison. She's also played Sonya Blade in the Mortal Kombat movie, the first one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she's been in some stuff. She answers the door by kissing Danny on the lips, which is super weird.
Yeah, kind of like, okay.
Oh, probably at the time, I'd probably think that's cool. It's like, hey, a hot chick kissing me, that'd be cool.
Right.
But, you know, adults probably shouldn't do that. Put that on screen.
Problems.
Kids have their imaginations. You just let them think that without having put it to reality. You don't have to do that. Also, there was a lot of weird stuff like that, especially in the 90s. There was like that move. Big kind of got there, but didn't really. I mean, like the idea of it is like, you know, like this woman basically had sex with a kid, but he was in the body of a man. So, but it's still kind of weird. But later on, you had like Blank Check, where I think literally like an adult made out with a kid in that movie. So,
oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I forgot about that.
There's probably other things from the 90s that I can't think. I mean, there's probably things in other movies, but you know, you know, you got I forget who's the quarterback. Tom Brady. Yeah, you got Tom Brady. Okay. Weird thing where like he kissed his son on his lips.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was trying to think like, what did he do? I was like, yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, well, that's all part of the whole Tom Brady, like weird, you know, universe that he lives in outside of football. That feels like you don't really want to know about it.
Yeah. It's like, how can this guy play this good for this long? It's like, you don't want to know.
Yeah, it's super strange.
It's eldritch horror stuff that keeps him alive.
Yeah. Yeah, you ever heard of H.P. Lovecraft? Yeah, this is how it happens.
Here's where Slater spots a picture of Andy, his kid that died in the. Actually, we don't find that out yet, but he sees a picture of his kid, and he's like flushed with emotions, and we see a flashback of Slater shooting Ripper off the roof, but like as I did it, I said roof. He shoots him off the roof, and then the Ripper pulls Andy off the roof with him, and then like Andy's dead, which is so this is a PG-13 movie, and it's kind of funny in the commentary. Apparently, that scene of him pulling the kid off the roof with him was the biggest problem they had with the movie. Was that scene?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess they just didn't like the idea of a kid dying, even though you don't see him die, you just see him fall off a roof.
Yeah. Huh, okay.
But that's the thing about the MPAA. There are no standard rules. It's just what they think of the time.
Yeah, there's no like hard walls. It's just like how you feel about it.
And even notice that they switched. It used to be the MPAA, and now it's just MPA. And I don't know when that switch happened, but it happened.
Yeah, I don't either.
Are they doing stuff for like other countries or something? Is that
No,
why they
everyone
took the
thinks they're
America
all-
out?
Well, they could be. Yeah, they could be like doing a North American thing. I don't know.
Yeah, because I know like in Europe they have like Peggy.
Yeah, rated Peggy 18.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
um.
Yeah, they have weird standards like in Europe. It's like, oh, show all the full frontal nudity and sex you want, but no, show someone getting shot. It's like, it's not for kids. Whereas here it's like the opposite. It's like, I put someone's head in a blender. That's fine. Don't you dare show a boob. It's like, I wonder what that's all about.
Benedict shows up at the house while Slater's out, like after he has to contemplate things because he's reminded of his son. Benedict's thugs take Whitney and him hostage. And there's like this weird thing, see where, because like Danny's trying to say, if you harm one hair on her head, and he literally harms one hair on her head.
Yeah, immediately like, stop. Pulls the hair off and like, go ahead. And then he just breaks it in half. I'm waiting. It's the best thing in the movie, Charles Dance.
Yeah. But Danny's like trying to cover for the reality of like knowing everything's a movie, because he saw a movie, and so he doesn't want, because he's kind of weirdly like he's suspicious that this guy knows what's going on.
Yeah.
They introduce like this counterfeit money, and he ends up like tricking the guys so that Benedict tells him to like throw it in the fireplace, and then that releases like colored smoke in the air, and that like clues in Slater that something's wrong with the house as he's coming back.
Yeah.
But then Benedict takes the magical golden ticket stub. Then we have like Whitney, like some guy took like Whitney back to like her bedroom, is like, oh, is this supposed to be like insinuated rape scene? But then she beats the shit out of him, so it's okay. I like she like screams with every movement.
Yeah, she's like still acting like she's being brutalized, and she's like basically kicking this guy's skull. And it was kind of fun. I forgot about that. I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's right. His daughter's like a ninja or something.
Yeah. But then she grabs that one guy's gun, then she pops back out and she tries to save Danny, but then they get the gun away from her. But then there's a ringing at the doorbell, and the kid that was supposed to get kissed shows up. What was his name, like Skeezy or something like that?
Yeah, Skeezy, something like that. Yeah, something weird.
And that's enough of a distraction for Slater, like to jump in through like the what do you call that? The skylight.
Yeah, the big skylight drop scene.
He makes two guys shoot each other. They start shooting back. He jumps for cover, and then he like rips out an electric cord and like sticks it in this dead guy who's holding the gun, and so it makes him fire the gun and kill other guys.
Yeah, it was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. It's getting like, yeah, this whole movie is supposed to be like, this is stupid. It's like you're supposed to celebrate it because that's the point of it, I guess.
Yeah, I was almost like, wow, that's really, I never would have even thought of that.
Actually, yeah, this whole scene's kind of funny because it actually seems like a John Woo like shootout scene. There's a point where like there's a guy's just shooting through the wall, and he's just like walking along the whole wall and shooting holes in it.
Yeah.
And then which is very John Woo. And then he grabs a shotgun and says, "Don't quit your day job," which that shotgun would have totally burnt his hand in reality. But again, this is an action movie inside the movie, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
Those realities will come forth later on. So that's the point of it. That's like the weird thing about those movies. Like in some ways it's almost critic proof, because whenever you call it dumb and say it doesn't make sense, it's easy to just respond, that's the point.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's supposed to be a sub commentary on action movies, and in some ways just Arnold movies in general. So
Right.
Then Slater gets like shot with a shotgun, but he's wearing a vest, and so it's all cool. He grabs a gun and shoots that guy. Benedict gets away, and so Slater just like kind of jumps off the balcony and like parkours his way down like the hillside to intercept Benedict. And then Danny gets on a girl's bicycle and decides he's gonna play chicken. It's like, I'm in an action movie, but then he's like, oh wait, I'm the funny sidekick. Like, I'm gonna die. And then
I'm gonna get hurt. Yeah.
And then he swerves out of the way, and they kind of have like a little kind of like ET moment where he's like shadowed in the moon, and then he just like falls into a house, comically. And then they go back to the house. And like the cops are there, and they're sort of like they're questioning everything that just happened. First we go to Benedict's house. It's just a house full of guns and glass eyes. Like there's like guns on the ceiling.
Yeah, glass eyes and like in a spoon wrap.
Yeah,
and just like glass eyes resting in spoons. It's really weird.
Here the golden ticket starts glowing, and then Benedict can like push his hands through the walls, and then he's like, well, this is weird. And this is where we come back to the ex-wife's house for Slater. Danny writes a swear word on a notepad, but we don't see it, and he asks Slater to say it out loud, but he won't. And this is where he surmises it's because it's a PG-13 movie and he can't say the F word.
Oh, okay.
But it's also where like they mentioned something like Benedict didn't have his glass eye in, and so a cop finds the glass eye, and he turns it has like writing on it, and he turns it and it ends up being a bomb, and he just like it's like almost like a nuclear bomb goes off, so it's like a comical explosion in the background.
Yeah, and the eye, if you because the eye was like had a seam in it, and he was twisting it, and it says vengeance. And then he twists it around and it says "is mine," and then the bomb goes off. It's like that was interesting. I didn't remember that. Like, oh.
And so they're back at Decker's, and they're getting chewed out. I don't know why they're getting chewed out. They didn't blow up the house.
I think everyone there but them died. And
that's what I'm
him
assuming.
And his daughter and him are the only ones who didn't die. So.
Yeah. So probably like 15 cops just died.
Yeah.
But they are comically like smoking like they are cartoon characters.
Yeah.
And so he takes his badge. Oh, this is where we get Humphrey Bogart shows up and he gets paired with a cop. And then but the place goes silent for a moment as like Slater's packing up his desk, and then Practice comes in and invites Slater to like spy on the funeral. This is where they go to Slater's house, and it's like bare bones and sad.
Yeah, it's got like 2 rear sliding doors facing a loud freeway.
Yeah.
Looks like the most awful place to live.
He just has a bed. He shoots his closet because he just like says there's always a bad guy in there, and there's a bad guy in there, and it's just a closet full of guns. Like that's his only possession is guns.
Yeah, they're all Desert Eagles, and they're like just kind of in a rack. They're like loosely stored, and it's all red shirts and blue jeans.
Which that's supposed to be a commentary on like what the real Jack Slater is like when the camera's not looking at him, like what his everyday life is, and it's just like sad and depressing.
Yeah,
that's what we're supposed to get. I don't know if they necessarily come across with that, but yeah.
Well, some people are like, cool, yeah, he's got focus.
Yeah, minimalist. Yeah, he's really no, what's that? That's
feng shui.
Not fun. What's the new thing where it's like, you have to like hold an object in your hand, and it's like you have to ask yourself, does this make me happy? And if it does, you keep it. If it doesn't, you get rid of it. I can't. It's a new thing, but
oh,
yeah, I forget.
Yeah, it's basically getting everyone used to the idea of being poor and not having anything. No, this is a new way to live. It's like, no, it just means the economy's going to suck for like 100 years or something.
Or you just have to be more fluid and be able to like move to different places and not attach yourself to like actually living in the same place for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, this is again another message from the Midwest to the rest of America. You have to live in places that aren't always nice and are sometimes very cold. because the nice sunny places you're living are burning. And you get like about 10 million people out of there, it's not going to stop burning. So sometimes you have to live in winter. It's not like, it's not like what you saw in Game of Thrones. It doesn't last for years. We'd all starve to death if it did. It's only, part of the year.
Hey, and it kills off the bugs, so
Yeah, you don't have like bugs that can carry you away. No praying mantis on like a leash here. You don't have to do that.
This also where like Slater's like lamenting like how bad his life is after surviving all his crazy adventures. Like this is basically like saying like if this guy was a real person, his life would be terrible because his life would be under constant attack. Anyone he's loved becomes a hostage or is killed. And so yeah, this is the sad reality of an action hero if they actually existed.
And then we find out like his wife doesn't call him all the time. He just pays a lady, and the kid's like, "What?" He's like, "Do you really think I'd be married to someone so stupid she doesn't recognize her recorded voice?" No, she's remarried. She's happy. It's like, okay, that was a moment of insight.
Also, like there's like also fun little things here where he has to like try to like bring up the reality of like how he can do these things, and there's sort of like this like off screen like all this like education he's getting to do these things, and that you just never see it in the movie. That's kind of fun too. It's like, no, I took all these classes. That's why I'm good at this.
Yeah. Practice, which is always a joke with F. Murray Abraham's like name.
Yeah. So yeah, they go to the mob funeral. There's a fun thing about John McTiernan talking about this in the commentary is kind of fun because what does he say about it? Because he calls the rooftop funeral sequence a foolishly expensive.
Yeah.
Because they shot on top of a real hotel roof. That's a real crane that they're interacting with. and he was like saying stuff like, "See, this is stuff you would do with digital effects nowadays, but then it all had to be done practically, and it was outrageously expensive."
Yeah, those cranes are like $5,000 a day sometimes, just to have those.
But at the time, renting that crane out for a day was cheaper than paying for a digital effect.
Oh, yeah. You need a wall of supercomputers. It took a month to process one frame or whatever they had back then.
Let's see. Now time to go back to my other notes. Slater works out that there's a bomb of nerve gas in the guy that they're going to the funeral for, who's called like Leo the Fart.
Yep.
And Vivaldi doesn't want to join with the other mob guys. He wants to take them all out, so he's the one left. And so Benedict like starts the bomb inside Leo by like pulling his finger to start the fart bomb. And then like
incredible.
He's got like a wristwatch on, and that's when the timer starts when he pulls his finger. And Danny and Slater argue about like whether Danny staying in the car will keep him alive or get him killed. And so he ends up like staying in the car, and he says like, "What'd I do?" And he says, "There's a gun in the glove compartment." He opens up the glove compartment, like 40 guns fall out. So.
Yeah.
And let's see here. And this is where I think he just says, "Hey, practice," and then he just yells out like, "Makes perfect," and then they kind of go off in a corner somewhere like talking about like what's going on. And this is where practice like betrays Slater.
And it's a running joke. It's like, you got to watch that guy. He killed Mozart.
Yeah.
He played Salieri in the 1984 Amadeus,
which I have not seen.
That's a great movie. You should watch it.
That was like one of the most famous movie covers, and like when you go to Blockbuster, like what's that movie? Because it has this movie cover that looks like it's like a Japanese anime or something like that.
Yeah, it's a little artsy painted cover. Yeah.
But I've never seen that movie. But
that's a good movie.
Me too. So yeah, then like so yeah, Practice holds up Slater, and then Danny comes up with a gun and holds up Practice, but then like Practice gets, oh wait, there's like a no, it's like ends up getting the gun from Danny, and they cuffs Danny to the pipes, and then but Danny still has the cuff key from the guy who broke into his house, and so he's able to get free again. I forget what he does, but then they all end up they all get cuffed again. They all get cuffed to the pipes. And then man, there's some Danny gets okay. Then he gets reversed again. Okay, yeah, the cuffs are okay. No, oh yeah, this where the smoking cartoon cat cop shows up and shoots Practice.
I shoots him in the back like 5 times. I owe you one, Slater. Sorry I was late, furball.
Slater goes to the roof to stop the bomb. Danny goes to the crane, but he has to figure out how to use it because I think he pulls a gun on the guy. And
yeah, he's just like waving a pistol around, like, you gotta help me, and everyone's like running. It's like, you wouldn't do that nowadays. That wouldn't be funny anymore.
Slater grabs Leo the Fart's body and runs off with it. Everyone on the rooftop, including a nun, pulls a gun on him.
Oh yeah, they've all got like everyone's heavily armed.
But then the crane hook comes like crashing through the crowd comically. It just like bowls them over. And then Leo's body ends up on like the crane hook. Slater jumps onto an elevator, and now an armed helicopter is giving chase and is shooting at him. Danny knocks over the helicopter with the crane. It blows up off screen. And then Jack ends up falling onto the crane hook. Then they drop the body into some tar pits. It's supposed to be the La Brea tar pits, but that's just a set they built.
Yeah, I didn't think it was the real ones.
And Slayer falls in two. Danny runs and he starts firing off a gun to like scare everyone away because it's supposed to be like in this guy's body's nerve gas, which would kill lots of people, lots and lots of people. And so like Slater's like crawls out of the pit, and the bomb goes off, and you see a bubble like blow up in the background in the tar pit, but it doesn't burst, so then it's contained within the tar pit, and so they move about their day. There's also comically where like they kind of cut around it where like Slater's just kind of like barely like wiping his face, and every time they cut back he's just like the tar is just completely removed.
Yeah, even Danny says, hey, tar sticks to most people.
And there's also when his daughter shows up in a giant truck.
Yeah, it's like a monster truck with flames on the side. Not like a big professional one, but it's a kind of goofy ones that people used to build.
Yeah, a giant lift kit with huge tires, but but practical one
too. Fun to park.
Then we have Benedict shows up at Vivaldi's house, and he's telling him that like all the mobsters are dead, and then and then like, oh, that's great, like I can't believe it. And then he just like admits that he's lying, and then he kills Vivaldi. Also, like
Vivaldi makes one of his like statements. It's like you turn a 360 on me, and he's like, you idiot. If I turned you mean I turned a 180? If I turned a 360, it means I would turn around and be exactly where I was before. Now I'm betraying you. He's like, huh? He shoots him in the head.
Yeah, I forget he calls him like you linguine eating like cretin or something like that.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah, just shoots him, and then and here we have Benedict starts breaking the fourth wall, like just looking into the camera, explaining everything.
Which is like the first time it's happened in the movie.
Yeah.
And then it's amazing when he does it. He's just like, yeah, this is, just like a key to other worlds. It's like the bad guys can win. But he's looking at you the whole time.
Yeah. He says, if God was a villain, he'd be me.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Yep.
And then this is where like Slater crashes into the house comically with the monster truck, which again,
Benedict doesn't even move.
Yeah,
like he just continues drinking his whiskey. Like Of course this happens.
Which that was another thing where like where McTiernan was like, yeah, this would be a digital effect nowadays. They had to do that practically with a real truck and a set. So. Let's see here. And then so yeah, Jack ends up throwing like Benedict and Professor Tanaka into a wall, and then they just like go straight through the wall and into the movie theater into reality.
Yeah.
And so I have that being the end of Act 2. So we have Act 3, and this is when Jack and Danny are now in the real world, so they also go through the movie screen. They see Benedict steal a cab. Slater tries to shoot the car, hoping to like blow it up, but it doesn't blow up in the real world.
Yeah, he's just like shooting a 50 caliber Desert Eagle in the middle of New York, and he's like, cars must be bulletproof here. It's like, no, you're hitting it, but they don't explode. It's not how it works in the real world.
And then they steal a car to give chase, and Slater complains that his hand hurts because he punched the window open. And then here Slater plays, like Danny gets out first, but Slater plays chicken with the car, and then they just crash right into each other.
Yeah, he runs like a late 80s, early 90s Sable into a like old school checker cab.
Yeah.
Which like there's like 1,000-pound weight advantage on the checker cab at least. But he does get out of the car. He's like, I hurt. And he was like, yeah, you die when you do that in my world. And it's like, no, this car has airbags. That one doesn't. Because like the professor's like just laying out on the front of the checker cab.
Yeah.
His head went through the steering wheel, which would, that would kill you.
Yeah, so he died, but then Benedict gets away. Although the way Slater was playing it off, it's like, oh, he's got to be dead. That hurt so much, but then he ends up running away. Which I wonder if Payback took this from that movie, because that's a great scene in Payback where you just they beef up the car with like racing harnesses to intentionally like run headfirst into another car.
Oh, probably, yeah. Death proof.
Yeah, this is where Slater sees a poster of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and here he's like overwhelmed. It's like, who's that guy?
Yeah.
It's like, what is reality? It's like, this is reality, Slater. And then Danny tells Nick about the ticket and how it like put him in the Jack Slater movie. And then Nick and Slater meet, and then Slater laments about being tortured as a fictional character, and the writers don't respect the nightmares that his adventures have given him.
Yeah, we got advanced PTSD from murdering 100 people.
And then we have Slater meets Danny's mom, but she's flabbergasted because she thinks she's Arnold at first.
Yeah,
but he says, "I'm Arnold Braunschweiger," which I guess in German that would be like brown silence.
That'd be weird.
I don't know if that's a fart joke or not. And then we have Benedict is like walking through New York streets, and he's like just witnesses rampant crime and no one really like caring about what happened. He's propositioned by like a very like sad prostitute.
Yeah, he just looks at her like, how old are you? Like, forget it. Get it. My God.
So this is where you see like, reality benefits a fictional villain. He goes up to a guy, he's like, I want to, hey, good sir. He's like, yeah. It's like, can you help me with an experiment? He's like, what's going on? And he just shoots the guy, and then the Benedict just announced to the world, it's like, I have murdered a person. Will somebody come and stop me? And then just like some guy from a rooftop was like, shut up.
Yeah, and he's been shooting the gun off, trying to get the cops to show up. Be quiet down there. Yeah, I mean, this guy pretty much just steals the movie, even though
his ultimate plot doesn't really make sense, but he's great in every scene he's in. So
Yeah, I mean, he's just like he's like one of those like British guys that like stage and stage and screen Shakespearean actor. It's like, yeah, come on over to America and be in some movies, and it's like, oh yeah, this guy is like completely professional and believable in every way, and it's like, yeah, that's why we like those British guys. They train good actors.
And so then we like kind of come to the next day, and Jack talked all night with Danny's mom. He convinced her that he's just like a cop that looks like Arnold. Here he hears Mozart for the first time.
Yeah.
Which he says like, wait, is that the guy that Practice killed or something like that?
Yeah.
And then Danny's angry.
He says it like Mozart, like his name's like Mozart, not Mozart, the last name.
Yeah, Moe's Tavern, Mozart. Danny's kind of angry that Slater's like becoming a wuss because he's like feeling for the first time, and there's consequences, and so he's kind of like taken aback by that. And then Slater surmises that Benedict will use the golden ticket on other movies to like gain power somehow. So he's grabbed.
He'll bring henchmen from like the worst movies you can imagine.
So he grabbed, which I think there's a cut scene where there's more of that, where he just like, I think he grabbed henchmen from like the Slater movie and just like old like gangster movies and stuff like that, but that got cut out of the movie.
Yeah.
But he's grabbed Ripper from Jack Slater 3 to use against Slater in the real world. Yeah, this is where Danny has to like contemplate mortality because they're in the real world. It's like, no, we can't do that, Jack. We're like, you might die. Which is probably just a whole like, metaphor for like, escapism being too much escapism can like be a shield to reality, but also make it more dangerous towards you.
Yeah.
Because you're not thinking about reality. And so
it's for all these like plans, like you see these YouTube fail videos where people are gonna like do parkour like in movies, and they just like almost make it, or they don't even start or something, but they fail catastrophically. And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna jump from this to this ladder and then land on my feet, and they like get caught in the ladder and break their leg because the world's actually harder than just, oh, I can think it and therefore do it. It's like, no.
So apparently, but Benedict is going to target Arnold Schwarzenegger because there's a premiere in New York for Jack Slater 4. Ripper shows up at the premiere to kill Arnold. And then like they interview him, is like, they're like, oh, Tom Noonan's here, like what, who are you, what are you gonna do tonight? He's like, I was planning to kill somebody. And then somebody was like, well, I hope it's your what is it, like your
oh yeah, his agent like stops him, like, yeah, you're gonna kill your career going up like this. And then you see the real Tom Noonan.
Yeah. And they're confused, like, wait, who's that? Yeah, but his agent gets him past security unknowingly, and I think Ripper like kills the agent, but the agent's not a big. There's some stuff. There's a lot of cameos here. You got Jim Belushi shows up. You got John Belushi. Oh yeah, wait, no, Jim Belushi.
Yeah.
They work together on Red Heat. You got. Oh crap, we just said his name. Van Damme shows up, just a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger as himself and with his wife at the time, was that Maria Shriver? Yeah. But she has some fun stuff where she's like trying to lay down like limitations about like what he can, like, you're not going to talk about like the restaurant again, because it's around the time the what was that restaurant?
Planet Hollywood.
which is a Shotsky chop restaurant that was hoping to gain claim by
anymore, does it?
no. They failed pretty hard. I don't know, all those restaurants failed pretty hard. So WWE had a restaurant at some point. So yeah, like they're Arnold's on one, like a lower balcony, and then the Ripper's on a top one, and he's like also the axe is like, it's not just an axe, it gets put together in an elaborate way too. And so he's about to throw the axe at Arnold, and then Slater shoots Ripper, and then Ripper like jumps and slides down a curtain with the axe. And then Arnold and Slater meet, but Slater's annoyed by Arnold because he's like, I hate you. It's like, are you in movies? You look just like me. He's just like, shut up.
You haven't made my life very easy.
But now the Ripper's taking Danny hostages, so this mirrors the beginning of the movie. And this kind of solidifies the whole thing where it's like, you have to remember, like, they don't dwell on it too much, but like, oh, remember, Danny doesn't have a dad, so he's probably looking for a father figure, and here's the guy, and now the guy's out of a action movie in reality, and they have to deal with like, it's like, like, wait, you can't be my dad because you can't live in the real world. So like, Slater throws his gun away again, and then this time the Ripper just throws Danny straight off the roof. They just start with that. But then Slater, like, the Ripper throws the axe at him. He like ducks out of the way and grabs it, and he's like coming towards him, but they ends up like hitting like an electrical box and kind of getting his feet off the ground, and electrocutes the Ripper. Which, again, that's okay. So we're in reality now, so that shouldn't work. But okay.
Yeah.
But then we hear Danny calling for help, and he's like hanging on to like an outcropping, and then Slater saves Danny, and then Benedict shows up, and he's like painting them down with fire behind like a barrel or something. And then here, like, Benedict's like giving away his plan to bring villains from cinema to real life. And then Benedict's gun like runs empty, but it's a ruse because like Slater gets out and he's like, like, your gun's empty now. And he's like, no, Slater, no, Jack, I just left a chamber empty. And then he pulls the trigger again, and then he puts a bolt in his chest. And then like he goes down hard. He's like bleeding from the mouth, bleeding from the chest. It's like, this is reality. But then, and then like Danny, he tries, like, he kind of comes at Benedict and he pushes him aside or something. And then, Danny like pretends to say like he broke his arm. He's like crying to get him to get away. And then Danny like gets a gun to Slater, and he shoots Benedict in the eye, which is an explosive, and so he comically blows up. And so that's the end of Benedict. But now that like
the old disadvantage of keeping an explosive in your head.
Also, like, the golden tickets like flies away, and this is where there's a showing of the Seventh Seal, and so
I thought that was great. Totally forgot about this.
And so that brings Death out of the Seventh Seal, played by Ian McKellen here. And so, but Danny's trying to rush to get Slater back to the movie, because if they get him back to the movie, then he can live, but in reality, he's probably going to die. And also, they show off that Death can just kill a guy by touching them. They're in an ambulance. And this is played like very serious, because like, they have like all kind of stuff. He's kind of like convulsing or whatever, and there's blood everywhere. And then Danny like pulls a gun out in the ambulance, and then everyone just abandons the ambulance.
Running away.
Like he should.
Yeah, which is what you do. It's like, whatever's going on, I'm not part of this.
But then so Danny like takes over driving. He tries to get him back to the theater. because he gets him back in the movie. He can start the gunshot. And then death comes for Slater, at least he thinks so, but Danny stands in the way, and he has Benedict's gun, so he's holding that death. But Death says he's not there for either of them. He says that Danny like dies like a grandfather, but he was just curious because Slater wasn't on his list. And he starts to leave, and then like Danny like pleads with Death, saying like you got to know something how we can like figure this out. And then Death leaves him with the clue that that the other half of the ticket's still at the movie theater. So Danny goes and like breaks down like the ticket box, and he finds the thing. He's like, got it. Then they bring it back and is able to activate, and they're able to throw Slater back into the Jack Slater 4 movie. And then Slater's urging Danny to go back to reality so he isn't stuck in the movie, which I don't know, that that's just kind of a sudden thing. It's like you get stuck here, but I don't know why it's sudden, but that's just, the movie's wrapping up, so you gotta have like that kind of dilemma. And so Danny like reluctantly goes back to reality. And then like a bunch of people come up to assist him, and then they basically like lift up his shirt and it's like, what? Everything's fine, because it's not even a flesh wound. Like, what's your problem? But then they show Slater like now lives in the movie with knowledge of him like living as a fictional character, and so he kind of uses that to his advantage and yells at Decker. It's like my ears hurt from your yelling. I can hear you. And they kind of like, I think they cut to Danny kind of just like smiling because like he like Arnold like breaks the fourth wall, winks at the camera, winks at Danny, and they kind of cut to like Slater driving off into the sunset, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, he's waving too.
Yeah. Which there is an alternate ending where they kind of like have Danny like running out of the theater, and for some reason they make it look like, I guess maybe because the ambulance is there or whatever, there's like a crowd gathering, and so his mom shows up and it's like, what's wrong? And she tells him like, wait, don't tell me. It's like, this will be something you'll tell me on your deathbed, on my deathbed. Like, I don't want to know. And it's just supposed to be implied that like, hey, like things are gonna be better for us because I don't know why. I guess he went through a dilemma, and
things are looking up. This grinding poverty we live in, it's like, I don't have any way to alleviate it, but we're just going to feel better about it.
Yeah. So yeah, now I think I appreciate this movie now more than I did when I was a kid. It's still, there's a lot of things like bad with it, but it's more interesting now.
Yeah, it was like I said, it was kind of it was sort of a slog to get through, and then I did some like independent reading about it's like, yeah, if they'd done this movie now, well, number one, they would have probably done like a limited series streaming thing where you would have got into more of like, oh, the differences in this meta universe and the breaking the fourth wall. It's like, that's all stuff they do now all the time. Back then, especially with a big budget action movie that like where Arnold Schwarzenegger was like in your face constantly, and the promotion of it, it's like, it was sort of ahead of its time. But it's also, the story it wasn't the strongest story I'd ever seen. It's like oh, there's a lot of cool ideas here, but it's not cohesive.
Yeah, clever idea is not well executed. Or not executed to its fullest potential. Although it was interesting in the commentary, John McTiernan says that from greenlight to premiere was 8 months.
Yeah.
Which for an $85 million movie is very short.
That's a vicious shooting schedule of this size.
Yeah, he's basically saying that like as soon as they were done shooting it, it was like in the editing bay. And so he didn't blame the editors for the movie. Yeah, also like weirdly, it's like the whole commentary, he is like apologetic for the movie almost.
Oh, wow, okay.
But he also seems to be like, but for some reason there's fans now for it, so I hope you liked what we did well.
Well, yeah, it was kind of like explained like in the couple of the articles I read. It's like, well, it lived on as a rental. It did very well if you track its rental sales and rentals. And on streaming services, it's like, it's not the number one movie that Arnold's in that people stream, but it's up there. It's like people kind of rewatch it.
Yeah.
Said for me as a movie theater, it was a tough experience. Didn't enjoy it. Watching it at home, where I could get up, go to the bathroom, get a drink, think about things, maybe browse the internet to get factoids about the movie. It was fine. But just having to engage this movie, especially at 18, expecting a action movie, it's like, oh, I get the negative response.
Yeah.
I totally get it. But also, it's like, viewing it differently now. These things are kind of framed differently and done differently now. It's like, yeah, this was actually not a bad idea. It just needed a lot more story polish.
Yeah.
The parts where it was clever, it was really clever for that time and even now. But the parts where like you're really depending on like some story to carry you through these interstitial action scenes, it sort of falls flat. It seems to double in length once they come to the real world New York, and it's like, no, it's halfway through the movie, but for some reason it's like, oh, this is through some weird mathematical process has now opened up into a 4-hour movie.
Yeah. Yeah, which McTiernan was saying like he wanted to do stuff shorter, but I don't know when the commentary was recorded because it's new to this 4K release.
Okay.
So this 4K release came out in 2021, so I have to kind of assume it either was recorded in 2021 or 2020. I don't know when. And yeah, McTiernan's kind of persona non grata in Hollywood, so it's like what went on there. He has great commentaries. This is not his greatest commentary. Like, once again, he seems to be like regretful of making the movie. He also seems very old and forgetful about this movie. But he talks about the movie being too big for itself and thus bloated. Like, it was a huge budget, a quick production. They threw so much money at everything.
Oh yeah,
the studio was like all over him. And he said he wanted the tone to be more Vonnegut than with an ironic tone than what we got here, which is just kind of goofball.
Oh, he wanted more of a Slaughterhouse-5 vibe or something? Okay. Interesting.
But also there's stuff like where you have like little stuff where he's like driving, where like they pull out of the cop the garage and he starts going up like the do not enter ramp and then just like crosses over. He's like, I should have done more stuff like that. Like, so actually it seems like he wanted to make Loaded Weapon 1 rather than this movie. Yeah. I haven't seen Loaded Weapon 1 in a while. I remember it being a better like action spoof thing, or at least fully committed to the spoof though.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, this was compared to movies like that. As like, well, when people think there's like, oh, it's a comedy satire, it's like they're thinking like Loaded Weapon, Police Squad, like Airplane, like that was kind of the appetite in 1993 that people had, not this sort of abstract idea with some fun dialogue. And it's like, no, it's just weird and not effective.
Well, also they said like the studio had the wrong idea of selling it as just a straight action movie when they should have really been playing up the whole like kind of like meta narrative and like the magical story of Danny going into films and stuff rather than just like cool explosions.
Yeah. Yeah, it could have been marketed differently, but they weren't going to market a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like that.
Also in the commentary, he's talking about the anamorphic lens is like better. It better represents what you think you see when you see things in real life.
Okay, that's an interesting artistic take on something I have no knowledge of. So.
Should I explain anamorphic lenses, or
please do, because I don't understand.
Okay, so like a spherical lens, which I don't know if it's representative of your eyes, but like basically like a normal or standard spherical lens, you'll see it like in lens flares, like it'll be like how you see a lens flare, because it's but like with anamorphic lens, it'll have like this kind of like weird oval shape because that's the shape of the anamorphic lens. So what anamorphic does is like it's taking in the image and it's compressing it into a widescreen format because the 35 millimeter format is only so big. So if you take in the image and then squeeze it down into like an obscure shape so it can fit on the film, you can then project it out as a wider screen.
Oh, okay.
But then like weird things happen. Like if you're doing like special effects with anamorphic film, it like gets all weird because things just get weird as they stretch out, and you have to like compensate for that. So it's very hard to do special effects for anamorphic films. At least back then, I'm not sure nowadays, because that's why Terminator 2 was shot in what they call Super 35, where on the 35 millimeter print, there's a section left to actually imprint audio on the film itself, and so they don't use that because the audio is separate, and so they use the audio track and like record picture on top of the audio track, so they have more of a widescreen look, but it's not as widescreen as an anamorphic presentation.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So, but so yeah, if you want to notice like an anamorphic film, if you look at the lens flares, they're kind of like more like eye shaped and oval rather than like circles. So that's when you know it's anamorphic. But yeah, that's the end. But he was. So I just thought that was interesting. So, also he was talking about how like all the action scenes he had to like storyboard them like pretty extensively. But he was like, his offhand comment is that if you storyboard the action scene, they're less likely to jack the price on you later on.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, wait, what's that about? Which is kind of itchy because like, you know, McTiernan is an artist, but he's doing a lot of action stuff, but he's also very budget conscious. So he does like arrive at a interesting mesh of a director and a producer. So we have to recognize it's like, no, there's cheaper ways we can do this and be just as effective, rather than the full artist where it's like, no, my vision must be brought to screen.
There is no cost too high. We're shooting the chariot scene in Ben-Hur. No matter who dies.
He says that Arnold got to be more of himself in this movie. So like when he's more like playful and like makes fun of himself, he says like that's more just the real Arnold. So I guess that's why Arnold kind of really liked this movie for himself. Okay, that's all the notes I have for the commentary. So yeah, it's not the best commentary for John McTiernan commentary, but I did find a fun hack, which I guess I should have figured out, realized some other time, because I've really felt, I used to listen to every audio commentary existed, and now like I barely listen to them ever. Now I've been listening to them again for this podcast, and so I started the movie at 4. I'm like, oh wait, this is like a 2 hour and 20-minute movie. I'm like, I'm gonna like miss the time, but if you advance the film like 1.5 at 1.5 speed, you can still hear the audio commentary. It's like, oh, and so I was able to like finish the movie in like an hour and 20 minutes. So okay, and I can still hear the audio commentary. Also, it worked with this one because there's a lot of dead space of him just like remembering like, what did we do with this scene? Yeah, there's some cut scenes, but like, nothing too like, oh, that should have been in the movie. It was just kind of extended stuff. There was stuff where like they're hanging out outside and some kids thinks he's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and so they like, hey, give me your autograph, and he's like, no, go away, kids, I'm not that guy.
And he sounds exactly like him.
And so yeah, and I did go read the original screenplay that Zach Penn and Adam Leff put together. Zach Penn has a interesting writing career. He's like, most of his writing credits are story by credits, so like people buy his scripts and then make other people write his movie.
Well, I guess you're getting paid. I don't know how you feel about that.
I mean, like another big one, he got a story by credit on the Avengers movie.
Nice. That was a good payday.
Yeah. But most of the movies he has like an actual written by credit on are, they're okay. What's his? That's not good. No. Okay, he gets a screen by credit for that Incredible Hulk movie that kind of kicked off or was part of the first films of the MCU.
Okay.
Like the one with, what's his name? From Fight Club and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Before he got replaced.
Edward Norton?
Yeah, Edward Norton.
Yeah.
He did do the screenplay for Ready Player One and Free Guy, which I never saw. Free Guy. Don't hear good things. Ready Player One is like, I don't know, I guess more enjoyable than the book, but still not necessarily a great movie. But it's fun. Huh. But yeah, he gets story by credit on the X-Men 2 movie, which is kind of the best X-Men movie.
Yeah.
He also, with this guy they wrote this movie with, they wrote PCU. Do you remember PCU?
No.
It's like, it wasn't successful at the time, but it's kind of like, it got played to death on Comedy Central, and it's like weirdly has eked its way into like the culture, like into like modern culture. It has Jeremy Piven in it. It's got Jon Favreau and David Spade's in it. It's basically just like Animal House, but for the 90s. But like one of the big thing that's carried forward, like this is the movie where like Jeremy Piven like makes fun of Jon Favreau because they're about to go to a concert, and he says like, you're gonna go to the concert with the band's t-shirt, and you're gonna wear the band's t-shirt to the band's concert, and that being like a faux pas or something. Like that's from this movie.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Which is something I still hear people say, and of course nobody believes in it. They just want to find ways to mock people. So
it's just like, how can I say something mean and make it sound like no, I really care about you.
Yeah, so I read the original screenplay that this movie is based on. It was still called Lost Action Hero, although he's not called Jack Slater. He's called Arno Slater in the movie.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that was changed.
Like kind of up until he gets pulled into the movie, it's like about the same. Like the opening action sequence isn't the one in the movie with the hostage on the rooftop. It's a like kind of a mall shootout scene instead, and it's like a trailer. It's not the Jack Slater movie. It's not like a Jack Slater 3 movie, and it's not called Jack Slater. It's called like Extreme Violence or something, or Extremely Violent or something like that is the name of the Jack Slater movie.
Oh, okay.
So like there's good ideas in it, but man, the script is just full of hyperbole and unnecessary adjectives, and I don't know if they like wrote a bad script or if they're writing a script for moron executives, because it is just so stupid to read. But it's like, again, that's kind of the point. Like, am I calling the movie stupid, or is it meant to be stupid?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, am I the smart one or are they the smart one? It's like, I don't know. So hold on. But I don't know, there's a part where like they mention like a massive assault rifle, and I was like, so what are you talking about here? Is this like a M14 full auto, like, 308, or you just mean a rifle that's big? Like, it's like, what do you mean? Double Dragon 2 is mentioned in it, but it's like they say it's an extremely violent video game, just be like, Danny's just encased in violence and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not a violent video game. They punch and kick each other. There's no blood. People just blink out of existence. That's not violent. Yeah. But I could see them like, because they were like 23 when they wrote this. So I can see them like writing it for executives and them not knowing what Double Dragon is. And so you say it's a violent video game, and then some old executive's like, oh, I understand that.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know if it's badly written or if it's written for stupid people to sell the movie. There's no golden ticket. It's not like the projectionist is not like kind of a sleepy old guy that just wants to help. He's kind of like just weird, and he gives Danny a gun instead of a golden ticket. And then Danny ends up shooting bad guys with it. So that movie's not getting made because like in the script he shoots a lot of people with this gun. Although it's kind of fun. It's kind of like described in a way that's kind of interesting, where it's just like a revolver with a big muzzle on the end of it, but then when he fires, it's like he's firing like the Death Star laser. And then the guys don't like, the guys just like turn into dust when he hits him with it. So it's like, oh, okay, I guess that's a way you could have a kid shoot people in a movie and not maybe people wouldn't get too offended by a child killing people with weapons. And And then there's no magical ticket thing, but there's like a rip in the movie, and he's watching. He kind of walks up to it. It's on there's a rip in the projector screen that just gets pulled into the movie. In the movie, Decker is like a traitor, and he was like his nom buddy. And then he's like, "How do you know I was going to betray him?" He's like, "Cause you're his nom buddy. The nom buddies always betray them." There's the big bad guy. His name Id, and then he has like burns on his face, but then he like takes off the bandages, and it's revealed to be the projectionist, which I really don't know what that's about. And then like the projectionist wants Danny to kill him with a gun to get revenge. And then it ends with like Danny doesn't kill him, but he like walks out of the movie, and then you see like the projectionist like kind of like the building's on fire and it falls on him, and then he dies at the end. And then Danny like ends up at his dad's grave, and he's crying over it, and his like mother's there. And then there's also you have like where Jack Slater, or I guess it's not Jack, it's Arno Slater. He abstains from violence basically as he figures out that this is like a movie, and he ends up in the real world. He like takes his gun out and just throws it in the trash, and then walks off into the real world. And that's the end of the screenplay. So I think the general idea is cool, but I do think that Shane Black did write a better movie, even though it's still flawed. Because I remember I did read some trivia that's saying like this original screenplay was completely different, and they like for no reason gave it to Shane Black to rewrite it. And I was like, no, he did write a better movie, but so.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it was it was actually an improvement.
Well, yeah, because like the whole character of Benedict, which is like the best part of this movie, is not in the original screenplay.
Right.
There's like they have like these French twins who are like these like hitmen that they can't constantly show up. And then there's the Id is supposed to be the big bad guy, but he really doesn't have a whole lot of scenes. So it's more of a lot of like just like Slater and Danny fighting just nameless henchmen in weird situations. And it's just that for like 80 pages, and then suddenly it's like, all right, here's your bad guy characters that mean something, and then the movie's over. So
yeah.
And again, I thought it was just, a lot of these scene descriptions was poorly written, but again, I don't know if that was intentional. Because hey, I've written poorly. I've written bad screenplays, so I can recognize that, but I'm not in the business. I've never had, like, I don't know how these guys, I don't know. This is their first script they script. They're like, it always gives me hope. It's like, man, if these guys sold this shit,
yeah,
surely I could sell something, but maybe they knew somebody. I don't know. Cause if you like to think that all endeavors are a meritocracy and like just the best people rise to the top, but it's usually just nepotism.
Yeah.
Money and nepotism will get you really far in life.
Yeah, you always you always think like, oh, stuff's going to be more interesting, and it's like, oh yeah, how do you get into this? It's just like talent, hard work, effort, and a little bit of luck, and you find out, oh no, it's just all corruption, sex, drugs. Like, why did this guy get a part in the movie? Well, he's the assistant director of photographer's drug dealer. Oh, okay. What does this guy do? He hangs out at parties, make sure no one gets hurt, or at least if someone does get hurt, it doesn't reflect badly on who's hosting the party. It's like, oh, okay, that's nice.
Yeah. Also in the commentary, McTiernan mentions that like this was just too big of a movie. Like, just there was so many people in the production, it was like hard to like keep it all together. Where like he was saying that like the production for Hunt for Red October was like, he said it was like not that big. Like he was talking about like when they're filming, like when they're doing like outside shots of like the boat, when it's just like a tanker made to look like the top of a submarine.
Yeah.
Like he's saying like that was a 10 people shoot, and like he was like hauling, and he was like hauling cases around. Him and Sean Connery were like hauling cases around to get the shot done.
I can see that. Yeah.
He was like, yeah, I really like small shoots. where nobody pays attention to me and I can do what I want.
Yeah, that was a good adaptation of an even better novel.
Yeah, because well, yeah. What do you do? Because like, I guess I don't know. I'm ambivalent. I haven't seen Medicine Man in a while, but because that I guess it didn't really halt his career because after last action hero, he did Die Hard with a Vengeance 2 years later. So I guess
Yeah.
it didn't put him in director's jail. He just literally went to jail.
Yeah, it was less metaphoric, jail, less abstract notion of incarceration. It's not a social shunning type of incarceration. No, it's orange outfits and bars.
um, but so this probably has a cult following. It's found its place. Um, but yeah, the critics hated it. It didn't do well at the box office, but it's found a place. Other movies at the time, we have Falling Down. We got Tombstone. We got the Coneheads movie.
Yes.
We got Robin Hood Men in Tights. We got Demolition Man.
That's another cult goofball movie.
Yeah. We got Hot Shots Part 2. We got Hard Target, which I believe was the first John Woo American movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I do remember that.
We got Point of No Return. Let's see what else. Jurassic Park, I know, is in there somewhere. Schindler's List, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Schindler's List, Nightmare Before Christmas are from the same year?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Well, I mean, think Jurassic Park and Schindler's List are in the same year. Like, that's a hell of a year for Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, it's like
here's a box office giant, and here's a critical darling in the same year.
Yeah, Schindler's List has got to be one of the darkest movies I've ever seen about World War II.
Yeah. Oh, and The Fugitive. Fugitive came out this year, which is probably a very smart action movie for that year. So.
Oh yeah.
And that movie's huge.
Yeah, they used to have like blockbuster season. I forgot that because they don't really have that anymore.
I mean, yeah, summertime is when the blockbusters come out. I mean, that's what it usually is because, kids are usually buying the tickets and then they don't have school so they can watch it multiple times.
I mean, the big blockbuster this year was probably Maverick.
Oh, yeah. But that's not even like, well, it's a blockbuster for COVID times. Like, no, it's a huge movie.
No, it's a huge movie.
And that Spider-Man movie that came out this year is also huge.
Oh, and yeah, my son loved that.
And even that Uncharted movie that he did early in the year was also did huge blockbuster, but that's just Tom Holland. It's like kid can't miss right now. So
what's the Dwayne Johnson? There's a big Dwayne Johnson superhero thing coming out, isn't there?
Yeah, Black Bolt. I think it's Black Bolt.
Black Adam.
Black Adam, yeah.
Yeah. But that's not really summer. That's like almost fall, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we're outside the summer blockbusters right now. So, although I hear a lot of funny stuff talking about that movie, where it's like they're saying that the movie sucks so much that if you listen, I don't know if it's true, but the way they're saying it, you analyze the way The Rock is selling this movie to the public, he's not talking about how good the movie is. He's just talking about the concept of the character and how the character is stronger than Superman. That's how he's selling the movie, because the movie's, and they're implying that the movie's garbage, and that's so he can't sell the movie on its own merits. He has to make up stuff about it.
Nice. I've never heard that. That's getting deep into comic book stuff that I know nothing about.
Yeah. I'm not sure it says it's in post-production, so I don't know when the release date is on that. that might be like a Christmas movie or something. Because that's also when they release blockbusters. It's like, you know, it's either like, here's a movie we want to set up for the Oscars, and also like, here's a movie because like everybody has Christmas off, like we're gonna shove them into the theaters and get a bunch of money. It's releasing October 21st. So
Okay.
superheroes for Halloween. There you go. Get your costume ready. Yeah, Arnold doesn't really do anything. He's just kind of like he's kind of like an influencer now. He's kind of like does Twitter and YouTube stuff. He's actually
tries to keep America from going to civil war.
Yeah.
I like his speech with his sword from Conan the Barbarian. It was actually pretty fun.
Yeah, he's conservative, but he's actually like the way you want actual conservatives to be, because he's like, yes, I'm fiscally conservative and I don't want government to impede progress of like small businesses and stuff like that, but he's also socially progressive, so he's not a weirdo about people, wants to control them.
Yeah, he just wants to make money.
Yeah.
And not in the most destructive, horrible way possible. You know, he's a real estate type guy and all that. But yeah, it is fun. Like he goes on his Facebook and, you know, occasionally talks about people and situations.
Yeah, he's a very like just kind of uplifting, chill guy nowadays. So
he has a pet donkey.
Yeah,
a donkey for COVID. COVID donkey.
He's got this rad bicycle that basically it has like really thick tires on it, so it basically looks like a motorcycle, but it's a bicycle. He just rides that around. He did have like a heart problem. I think got a stent put in or something. So, but he is
that's been a lifelong thing with he had open heart surgery not in the late 90s. So,
but I mean, he is 73. So,
well, and he was also like he was Mr. Universe type bodybuilder. That's a massive toll on your body when you look that. I mean, he looked like a comic book guy for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's not realistic. You're not supposed to be stronger than like a gorilla. Like that's not, human beings aren't that supposed to be that big, but it is cool when they are.
Yeah. I think there's a fun thing when Danny starts watching the Jack Slater movie. It says directed by Franco Colombo, which that's one of the bodybuilding guys that Arnold was hanging out with back in his Mr. Universe days. So
I think that guy was in the Pumping Iron documentary or whatever. Yeah.
Which I've never seen, but I've always seen the clip where Arnold's.
Oh yeah, I've watched that. It's fun. I mean, those guys are fascinating to me in a certain way. It's like that is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's like because they are working so hard at something so obscure and temporal. It's like because there's a life expectancy there. It's like what you're trying to achieve, you have only so much time, and so much energy you can put at it, and it's only going to last until you just age out of it.
Actually, there is a weird thing of bodybuilding where it's a very specific window, because the really young guys can't do that because their metabolism is basically just too high to get that kind of mass, and so there's actually like older guys like in their 30s are like where it's kind of like they can hit the right spot, but then like beyond your 40s then it's hard. So it's like this really narrow window for like those bodybuilding competitions.
I mean, they're putting as much effort into shaping their bodies as if they learned to carve marble.
Yeah.
Carve human, like the ideal physique. It's like they're doing it like in real time. But unlike the marble statues that will last for thousands of years, they got like 10 years.
Yeah.
And they know it too. I mean, you can see it in the corner of their eyes. It's like, okay, I got to push this. I got to push this. But because it's an interesting kind of art, because it is your body. It's like watching a guy carve a statue is cool, but watching these guys look like this and function in the world like this is very interesting because they're voluntarily doing it. They're muscling themselves to the point that they have almost no fine motor skills. You know, it's hard to move and sit.
Yeah.
And they're like gonna keep going. It's like, yeah.
And there's weird stuff where it's like a bodybuilding doesn't necessarily, like, even though you have these huge muscles, doesn't necessarily translate completely to practical strength. So there's guys that are like literally half their size that can like lift twice their weight.
Or then there's the guys that like flip tires and roll marble balls. It's like they don't look like the comic book guy.
No, they're big, thick guys.
They're just dense as trees, like the Icelandic Supermen and stuff. It's like, yeah, they're not like Adonises. They're like, this guy can pick up a car and throw it though in real life.
Yeah, but he doesn't have abs.
No. And sometimes he starts bleeding out of his nose because bad shit's going on. But we're pushing that rock, you know. Oh wow.
But yeah, the crazy unhealthy thing I know about bodybuilding is like, you know, so you have your bulking cycle or whatever, where you're putting on muscle, you're eating a lot, and then basically you're cutting like down what you eat, and you're also cutting water like just before the competition, where you're basically just starving and dehydrating yourself. And you're basically getting around, you want to get your muscles big as possible, because when you get in this cutting phase, you're going to lose muscle mass, but then your skin is going to like, you're going to have so little body fat that your skin is be almost paper thin and wrap around your muscles. And you're just literally a muscle, and it's incredibly hard on the human body.
Oh yeah. It's but like I said, it's cool in a way. It's a kind of art that is like, you don't make, you do. It's very different. And the guys that dedicate it themselves to, I mean, some people like, oh, they're just idiots. It's like, oh no, they're not at all. They're very focused on something oddly specific. And I used to know guys like this at work.
Yeah.
And it would be funny, like we'd be putting parts together and these guys look like, oh, this is an idealized Superman, and they'd be gassed after 4 hours because they're doing all this stuff outside of work, and it's like, oh yeah, I can barely pick this box up. It's like, why? It's like, well, you know, it's like the stuff you're talking about. It's like, I'm going through that right now, and it's like, this does not correspond with like reality. Like I figured, oh, I could pick up 4 of these boxes, and like, no, it's this guy's
I'm dehydrated and I don't have any fat on my body to burn extra energy from.
Then we had the one guy that was like the arm wrestling dude. He was a nice guy. He was like state, like ranked, like arm wrestling. He didn't come to work for like a while. I was like, what happened? Oh, he broke the bones in his arm wrestling. It's like one of them, not both of them, but one of them like broke and like kicked out and cut, I don't know, the vein, artery, I don't know what to do. But yeah, it's like, oh, get him to the hospital. He's going to literally bleed out. It's like the equivalent of slitting your wrist 4 times. And then he came back and he's like, yeah, I've lost a lot of strength. You know, they had to put my bone back together, but it's going back. It's going to be stronger. And it's just, you know, so I'd seen that. That's why when my son like had those bilateral break on his right arm, you know, or was it right arm, left? I don't know. But you know, his arm was going the other direction on the football field. And it's like, yeah, they'll put all kinds of metal in there and shim it up and it'll work just fine. It just looks scary as fuck when it happens. But said it didn't come through the skin. I know a guy where it's come through the skin. Now that looks gnarly. That guy died. It was terrible.
Huh.
I heard he died like 4 years ago. Massive heart attack.
Oh,
younger than me. 3 years younger than me.
I thought you were implying he died from the compound fracture.
No. He came back from that and he continued to arm wrestle. He got more into the coaching side of that, which I didn't know. There's this arm wrestling community, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
He was just a guy I got, someone I would normally never talk to, but you get stuck with them at work and it's like, oh, what do you do? And it's like, oh, I just I like to read Tolstoy. What do you do? Oh, I'm arm wrestling. Well, let's talk about that because that's going to be probably more interesting. But yeah, no, he had a heart attack or something. Someone told me about that. It's like, sure about, well, I won't say his name, but it's like, yeah, it's like, bad shit happens. That's always scary when I hear that and the guys were younger than me and ostensibly in better shape than me. It's like, oh God, had a heart attack, really? But who knows? Anyway, let's wrap up.
Well, if you like what you heard, and how couldn't you? You can find us at anchor.fm/Verhoeven Effect, or go to verhoeveneffect.com, or go to, oh man, Angry Bob's, what is it? Angry Bob's Film for Normal Guys Review.com.
How much did that cost you?
$12.
So that was just an available domain name?
Yeah.
Somebody had, or
No,
you made
nobody
that?
had it. I made it.
Oh.
Yeah, it was available. Yeah. It'll also take you to the Verhoeven Effect page. It was something Nathan said in the last podcast. I thought it was funny, and as a joke, I bought the domain and redirected it to our website. It's so specific. There's no way somebody had bought it before. So,
Yeah.
You can rate our podcast. You can rate us whatever you want, but the only thing the algorithm listens to is the highest rating. So remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. We have listener support on that page. You can support us at a monthly stipend of either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. And if you support us, we'll just do more faster. Really pick up on my speed reading skills, where I just scan the page as fast as possible, pick up some keywords, and pretend I read it. you know, speed reading.
Speed reading.
This is why I read slow, so I can build an image in my head and have lasting knowledge, rather than the pretend you read it thing. But I'm game. I did so. There's some methods that I've used. There's a thing where you kind of, if you get really close to the page, you can like read the edges with your peripheral vision, and you can kind of just move down the page faster. I have a hard time with getting rid of subvocalization, which is basically like when you read in your head, you're just basically reading aloud in your voice in your head at the same tempo, which is why I read slow, but I'm also building images. So that's hard to get over for me. The other thing I found where it's just kind of useful or interesting is that you don't actually look at the words. You track the spaces in between the words, and you basically like read 3 words at a time.
Oh, okay.
So, but I'm not good at speed reading, but it's
No, me neither. I have to read it like 15 times.
You can find us on Twitter at Verhoeven Effect, Facebook Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory. You can watch both this and that show live and unedited. And we also have t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/Greed Factory, which recently there's going to be a price increase by $1, but you know, that's the way the world is. But
damn you, Joe Biden.
There was a taker of Gildan ships that were hijacked. No.
Oh, okay. That makes perfect sense.
No, I'm kidding. That didn't happen.
I know, but it's like, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not raising the prices. We're not seeing any. We're not seeing an extra dollar. So no, keep your hate mail to yourself. And this huge, cash-rich adventure of ours.
So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
I'm Nathan.